Okay, hi everybody. Sorry, Robert and I were
We were chatting.
just chatting, and it could just go. It could just go and go and go. So welcome to another AZChats 2, and I'm really grateful to have you on, Robert. I truly am. We've spoken a couple of times.
Yeah.
One time was on briefly on Friday Night Tights. And then the second time, we actually had a what I think was a really good chat. And it's never going to be seen by people, I've been told. Although it was recorded, I think it was passed to Andre at Midnight's Edge, and I think it was given me, not so much, I don't think we can get away with this one. But I joined the podcast just as it finished. And we ended up having this like 1 hour, 90 odd minute conversation with other people, and I thought it was wonderful. But to the audience, this is Robert Meyer Burnett.
Meyer Burnett.
Yeah, I keep right. I've got Zach, your boy Zach, who's Richard C. Meyer. Right. And then I've got in my head, for some bizarre reason, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, because of the Burnett. And so I'm trying to get these triple-barreled names together, and I'm coming out with Richard Meyer Burnett. But I think the best way to introduce you is to let you introduce yourself.
Well, it's funny because, my grandfather's name on my father's side, my dad's father, his first name was Meyer Burnett. He was from Germany. And that's my middle name. And when I first worked in Hollywood, I was an art department production assistant on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And when you're getting credited, when they have to credit you in the end credits of the movie, you have to look like if you on the IMDb, if somebody shares your name, if someone has the same name as you usually they ask you to come up with something different.
Yes.
If somebody, so I was just, Robert Burnett, and they wanted me to, and there was already a Rob Burnett who produced David Letterman's show, The Late Show. He was much more successful and much richer than I'll ever be. And so I was like, okay, I'll use my middle name, like Robert Meyer Burnett.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you can do that. And so what's funny is, ever since then, I use my middle name professionally. But, if you just know me, I'm just Rob Burnett or Bob, whatever people want to call me. So it's so funny that since I've been doing the YouTube space for now 5 years, that now it's like Robert Meyer Burnett. I always feel like I'm such a pretentious asshole, when people say it out loud.
Oh, no, I think it flows. I think it's a wonderful little thing.
It's funny now, but when I hear it, it's like, because it's just strange to me that it was a professional thing. I mean, it looks cool on screen, but yeah. So that's why I go by three names. I only wish I'd made something like The Godfather, so people could be like, Francis Ford Coppola presents. I mean, I need to make something in my life that's worthy of the three names. That's my goal in life, anyway.
My goal in life right now is just to get through it. Just
I know, right?
This
Man, I don't know. Who knows when anything's going to get made ever again? I don't know.
Yeah, you might be. You might be the person that takes the movie industry by storm on the return, because Ruby Rose knocks at your door. Now she's free from Batwoman.
Yeah, well, I actually liked her. I love her. I'm a face guy. I love people's faces, and I think Ruby Rose has one of the great faces in entertainment. What she needs is the right vehicle for her. You've got actors, you've got to, I don't know necessarily that she was, I mean, I understand why she was cast as Batwoman, but obviously the rigors of doing a weekly television series and all that didn't sit well with her for whatever reason. But I liked her in the John Wick movies, and depending on whether she's in Orange is the New Black or something, like with any actor, you've just got to find the right part for them. So if she came knocking on my door, I would do that. I'd be like, Ruby, let's find something for you.
I think if you put a consensus up and said, was Ruby Rose good in John Wick 2? I think it'd be resounding yes. And then but then don't ask him why, though.
Right.
Because when you ask them why, it's 'cause you never said a freaking word. That's right. You never freaking said a word.
Yeah.
That's what you get. But yeah, I heard I heard good things about her from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
And that's a show I've never seen, but I heard very positive things about her. And then I actually heard that she was good as this assassin in John Wick 2. And so when she was initially cast, see, we've already got off on a tangent. When she was initially cast as Batwoman, I thought, okay, you know, yes, I see the identity politics side of it,
right?
But she's coming from Orange is the New Black, which is like a great feather in your cap, you know, a show which is resoundingly positive in everyone's eyes. And you know, again, John Wick 2, great stuff. And then you see her in the show, and you're just like, wow,
yeah.
What happened?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that people need to also realize about shows is you also have to make sure that the show that you're making is catering to the strengths of your lead. You know, that show, talk about identity politics, they certainly had an agenda in making Batwoman. And I think that when they hired her, I thought it was a good hire, but then they've got to make a show that suits her as well. You've got to meet somewhere in the middle. Of course, the showrunners have the show they want to make, but they also have to have a show that utilizes the talent that they've hired. And I think that's a skill, and that's a talent as well. And I think that, you know, the great shows, they develop, like Walter White, when they were making Breaking Bad, they didn't necessarily, Vince Gilligan had an idea, and they knew, the writing staff knew the general direction that they wanted to take the show. But in hiring Bryan Cranston and in hiring Aaron Paul, like Aaron Paul was supposed to die, you know, in Breaking Bad. And
really?
They were going to kill him off in the first season. But because that chemistry and that character worked out, then a deft producing and writing team changes it up. And they're like, you know what? We've got lightning in a bottle here, and let's see where we're going to take it. I mean, can you imagine that show if Jesse didn't stay in it for the entire duration?
I couldn't. I literally could not imagine Breaking Bad without Jesse. Like you say, the dynamic between the two, because they're so contrasting characters.
Yeah.
It was perfect, and that's exactly what you need. You need the chemistry, but you need the almost like a polar opposite.
Exactly.
But they need this. But obviously, they need to have the thing which does bind them together, which of course was their love of creating crystal meth, and the fact that they're both. We had the student and the master, almost like a Jedi, you know, type of situation. Student and master, and then the student became as good as the master in, if not surpassing, in creating the what's it called, Baby Blue or whatever it was called,
right?
Yeah, that they called the thing. But I tell you what, I want a show which will be very close to your heart, which I think adopted the same philosophy, is TNG, Star Trek Next Generation, with Commander Data. Because if you see Data in the first series, he's not built up as like a trifecta of Kirk, Bones, and Spock.
Right.
But when people gravitated towards, and it's wonderful that audiences gravitate towards an emotionless android, the Pinocchio, the thing that wants to be human.
Yeah.
And so is always doing a character study of humanity. And that's obviously, you know, as a human, that's the one you gravitate towards, because you get to see humanity through their eyes. And then suddenly Data becomes almost as elevated as Picard.
Well, you know, another thing is that Gene Roddenberry never saw Worf as really a principal character. He was the last person cast. And when they started writing for Worf, the writing staff was gravitating to him. And by the third season, you get episodes like Sins of the Father, where he had to suffer his discommendation.
Yes.
And all of that stuff was, then it led into Redemption, and there's so many things. And then, of course, Michael Dorn winds up on the fourth season of Deep Space Nine. And I don't think even Roddenberry saw where they could take that character. And even if you go back to, like you were saying, the first season of TNG, there's an episode, the 20th episode of the first season, called Heart of Glory, where they find these 3 other Klingons that have been in suspended animation.
I love that episode.
You know, people talk about the first season of TNG was terrible. Well, admittedly, a lot of it was substandard, but that episode in particular, you had Varn Armstrong, who later was playing like Admiral Forrest, plays the lead Klingon. And there's some great Klingon scenes when he's like, "Don't you feel the burning of your Klingon blood?"
Yeah.
And there's some great
the potential kidnapping and hostage. We've got a hostage. Tashiya
Yeah,
we've got a hostage situation, and he hands over the baby. It's like Klingons do not take hostages.
No,
which of course got a little bit reworked later on.
yeah, it did. That's a really good example. I mean, and I think again, that's when you see. I think one of the great things about our favorite television shows is when you have a writing staff that has a certain amount of autonomy, which I don't think. Where they're able to make these kinds of changes and course corrections that can seem. I think a lot of that happened with our favorite, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know, had a lot of that where they saw dynamics that were working and things that weren't. And
Spike being a big one.
Yeah, and Angel too, you know, and the fact who would have thought those characters would become the way they did and the dynamics of those shows. And I think all of our favorite shows, even like X-Files, people forget the mythology of that show really didn't develop until, well, the last episode of the first season with the Erlenmeyer flask and things like that, that the mythology was like Monster of the Week, then sort of mythology, but then they were able to develop it. And then unfortunately with X-Files, they had no idea where they were going. So
he got really weird on the final season.
It was just bizarre. They never figured out. I mean, one of the things I still ask myself about the X-Files was, okay, you have these human conspirators. Who were they talking to? Like they were talking to these aliens. Were the aliens hanging out like on the moon? Were they in their ship in the Arctic or underneath? Like, where were they? Like, where did they meet? How did they talk to each other? Did they have like a bat phone? Hi, we're the aliens. Really, we're gonna send some black oil here. Could you please get everyone's DNA? Like they had all these elaborate plans, and you never got to see like a council where they met. Like, yeah, we've just dispatched an alien bounty hunter. Like, wait, there's alien bounty hunters? Where did they come from?
On Earth?
Yeah, do you call them up? Like, is there bounty hunters are us? Is that the same place where Bosk and Zuckuss and Dengar are hanging out? Like, you know, where
is Boba Fett okay? Did they get out the Sarlacc pit?
Yeah, I mean,
what happened?
We got Brian Thompson, the shape-shifting bounty hunter, coming for you with his cool weapon.
Nice. But I mean, Worf was never like a huge character, but he was utilized in very clever situations.
Yeah.
And with the episode that you just mentioned, and I think one of the beauties of Star Trek is, I think nowadays, if that episode was made, the Klingons would be very black and white villain.
Yes.
Of the piece. But when they did it, you could see the honor of the Klingon. You could see where they were coming from. You could see their position. It wasn't a position of malice. It wasn't. It was literally our heritage. This is what a Klingon is, and so you could empathize with them. And when they started to get picked off as they were coming through, and you could almost. I love it when you do blur the line. When you do pose the question to the audience.
Well, when you get to the third season and you're talking about sins of the father, you know, they have to protect the Duras timeline or the Duras lineage, even though it's wrong. You know, that and they're like, look, you know, we have a political hot potato here. It could destroy the empire and plunge it in a civil war. So we basically have to lie. And, you know, Picard is talking to the leader of the Klingon High Council and saying, Kempek, like, you can't allow this to stand. Picard's like, I can't believe that I'm listening to this bullshit from the Klingons. And they're like, look, man, you want us to plunge? And they play that out. They play that out later in Redemption 1 and 2.
Yes.
They do have the Klingon Civil War and the Duras sisters and keeping timeline, I can say timeline, keeping that lineage alive. And it does tear the Empire apart. And it was so nuanced. I mean, and you know that
because Worf's the fall guy. He becomes the fall guy.
Worf is the fall guy, and you're like, this was written by Ron Moore, an episode that Ron Moore, who is new to the season, new to Star Trek in the third season, a kid basically in his 20s, and he's writing really sophisticated, thoughtful stuff. And nowadays, I as you know, I complain incessantly about the horrific writing on Star Trek. Can I say that?
Don't we all?
I don't mean, yeah, I mean, it's really, and you look at it, you wonder, why is this stuff so bad?
Like, because it's partisan now. That's why. It was never partisan before.
No, and that's what's interesting is that the writing in something like Sins of the Father really looked at both sides. Like on one hand, we want to go in and yes, we should do what's right, but in doing what's right at the time would have torn the Klingon Empire apart and plunged it into war. So it's what you're talking about is something that's it's three-dimensional. There are many ways of looking at it, and it sets up storylines that came back later because the writing was very sophisticated. And it was done, I mean, yes, it's in the context of Star Trek, but within that context, you're able to work in a very sophisticated manner. And what I find now is the writing is very, like I always say on my show, never put your agenda before your characters and your story.
Amen.
And now everyone is doing that. Like we have all this writing, like we need to get out in front and we want to make our statement. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a story. And a story, whatever your statement is or whatever you want to address, should be baked in to the story that you're telling. You should never put your agenda out first and foremost. And if you want to see an example of that, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You know, they weren't making a great big deal about the fact that yes, we have many black actors, and hey, we've got one of the best portrayals of a single father ever put on television. Ben Sisko and Jake's relationship, but nobody was ever coming out going, well, you know, there's the black family needs examples of how to have single parent. They never said that. They just went out and did the work. You know, they made the show within the context of Star Trek, and it is so nuanced and so interesting. And
same with LeVar Burton. You had a disabled black helmsman. The disability comes in, but it comes in normally in a scientific way,
right?
Not in a pity way. Oh, I've lost my visor. How do I now, as an engineer, circumvent this problem? I've now had my sight removed. So it's more of a problem solving than a, you know, oh, look, he's like a Star Trek Discovery. They literally pointed at a guy in a wheelchair in the metal and said, hey, look. And that's a real, they looked at the camera and went, that's a real disabled person as well. And then he just stopped there for 10 seconds.
They even did that. There was an episode called Melora, where in Deep Space Nine, where you have a woman who, you know, she can't work in our gravity. So she's got leg assists and all kinds of things. The thing was, they always, the disability was not the end all be all. It was the beginning of a story.
Yes.
And it was never, I mean, with Star Trek, they always took the tactic that if somebody is disabled, it shows inherently that their characters pivot and do something else that made them excellent in other ways. So their disability was something they had moved away from and worked beyond. Like Geordi, he was an engineer, a helmsman. He was smart. His disability never prevented him from doing anything. And he had abilities because of his disability, the way he could see things in different light spectrums or whatever, that helped him do things that somebody without his disability couldn't.
But they wouldn't patronize, and they would have those wonderful episodes when he would lament the loss of his sight. True sight.
Yes.
And that just added more character to Geordi, because this is a person that doesn't get bogged down by anything, by his loss of sight, utilizing the visor. But you understand that beneath it all, there is this desire to see like anyone else.
Yeah.
And he would give up all the other spectrums that he can pick up and all the other nuance that he could pick up just to be able, I think he said it in Insurrection, just to be able to watch a sunrise or sunset. And, you know, that adds to character. And the DS9 story that you mentioned was great because it starts off where you think, oh, we got a disabled crew member But then when you realize it's the whole gravity aspect, but when she takes you into, she took Bashir into the apartment, into her room, then she could adjust the gravity.
Yeah.
And then you realize who's now got the disability, because Bashir then had the disability. She didn't have the disability. But so they use metaphor very cleverly. And nowadays it's too on the nose. There's no nuance anymore.
Well, I think all of storytelling really comes out of oral and then literary.
This, by the way.
Well, it all comes from oral and literary tradition. And I think when you're working in science fiction, I've been reading science fiction my whole life, not just the great canonical science fiction like the Foundation trilogy, or now there's more Foundation books. But when I was growing up, it was like there was only the Foundation trilogy. And then you read Dune, you read Tolkien, or you read all these great works. And all of this stuff has already been dealt with in science fiction contexts. And I think when you watched the shows that came out of the classic sci-fi TV shows, whether it's Outer Limits, whether it was Star Trek, whether it's Twilight Zone, and the British shows, The Prisoner, even Jerry Anderson's
The Prisoner.
Oh yeah, and UFO, and all of this stuff had all come out of literary traditions. And what is frustrating to me is there's so much really, really interesting science fiction being written. Like Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which deals with a third gender, for instance. I mean, that was written in the early 70s. And now I feel that the writing that we're getting, at least on Star Trek, is really dumbed down compared to the Star Trek of yore. I mean, there was much more sophisticated writing in the 60s, the 80s, and the 90s.
When you go partisan, you're losing diversity of thought.
Right.
So and that's the most important aspect when it comes to creativity and agreement and understanding, is diversity of thought. You can put as many black, trans, gay, whatever people into your shows, but unless you have the diversity of thought, it's only coming from one angle, and it's only as meaningful as that angle portrays it. Whereas when we used to have that diversity of thought, because Star Trek is the classic show for showing both sides.
Yes.
And I mean, that's why we had the Ready Room meetings. That's what it was there for. It was literally a metaphor of what would the people think? We have the Worf acts as the aggressive, the call to action. We have Data, who's the analytical. We have Troy, who's the who brings the empathy. So the Ready Room meetings are so much more nuanced than could it, just at glance could be seen. But now everybody in the room is on the same identical wavelength, and that makes for boring, one-sided, both conversation and writing.
Yeah, which to me is so strange, because one of the things, like, you think of an episode like The Enemy, which is a third season episode where a Romulan is wounded. Geordi saves this Romulan, and he needs a blood transfusion, and they want Worf to do it. Like, Worf's like, no, like I'm not going to do that, and the Romulan ends up dying. And if they were to write this now, they would punish Worf for his position. They would say that, and
force him to do it, or something.
Yeah, and he was just like, no, and that was something that I thought was very interesting. Or you go back to the original series. There's a second season episode called "A Private Little War," where Kirk returns to a planet. He has a friend, Tyree, who's part of the Hill people. And they're in a war against the village people, and the village people are clearly like, it's a total metaphor for Vietnam, but they couldn't address it directly because of standards and practices.
Sure.
And in the episode, the Klingons are arming the villagers with flintlock rifles and upping their technology, and the Hill people are suffering. And Kirk's like, well, we have to keep the balance of power. And McCoy is like, McCoy yells at Kirk. He's like, you can't do that. You're condemning these people to decades of war. And Kirk's like, well, if we don't, they're going to be slaughtered. you know, and it there you literally have your two principal characters, two of your three of the triumvirate, arguing with one another about which way to do things is best. And it becomes, and the thing is, you as the audience are, you understand that what McCoy is saying is correct, but at the same time you know that Kirk's correct too. If
because you have Spock the analytical, you have McCoy the emotion, and then you had Kirk, who is the balance.
Well, also, no. So go ahead. Sorry.
No. That's I was breathing.
Well, the funny thing about all this is that both of those things are true, but then you have the actual reality of the situation, the day-to-day reality of, yes, perhaps arming the Hill people would not be the best thing to do because you are condemning them to war. So ideologically, probably the best idea. But reality is that when the villagers come up with their flintlocks, these people are going to be slaughtered because the universe is indifferent to your suffering. And what you need to deal with is the reality of day-to-day existence here. And it's like, now I feel that, especially here in America, we're arguing about all of these ideological things that we want to make the world a better place. But what's not being discussed is the actual day-to-day reality of how people are existing. Like in my own hometown of Seattle, I don't know if people have been following this on the news, but you had a group of protesters starting the Capitol Hill, you know.
I like to refer to it as chode.
Well, so what happened there is when you had all these people that, sure, they got the best intentions, but basically they set up their own country within a city in Seattle. But when you do that, there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. I mean, your ideological thing about how we're going to bring change to the world, well, that's great. And I think that's terrific that that's what you're thinking about. But what you've also done is you've taken over, you've occupied an area of a city. Now you have to take into consideration, okay, well, where's the electricity coming from? Where is the plumbing coming from? Where is garbage, food, all of these things? Well, because there's already this infrastructure that already had been paid for, they don't even have to worry about that. So they can just, you know, and now, of course, they had their own medics and their own security people. And yesterday, on Monday in the morning, 2 kids were shot by their security. One died, one's in critical condition. And you have to ask yourself, okay, it's great that you want to have a revolution and change the world, but there are realities of day-to-day life that also have to be taken into consideration. So how do you do that? Well, it's really hard. Civilization is really, really hard. And while we want things to be just and we want a more verdant and just society, you also have to, like you said, feed people, clothe people. Where do you get your power from? They didn't have to have a power plant or anything because somebody else already built that. Yeah. The roads were already built. There were already sidewalks. We already had a playing field that you could pitch tents on. But it would have been
what if they had said they didn't take a part of the city? What if, for argument's sake, the mayor said, we'll give you a plot of land?
That would have been far more interesting.
Exactly. That would completely change the dynamic again, because they've lost their shelter. They've lost their electricity. They've lost their running water. They've lost their sanitation. They would have lost everything. But this is what you're saying that you want.
Right.
You're saying you want this autonomous area away. This is, you have that. So it's crazy. I think those shootings were the 5th shootings in Chaz as well. And it's already being dismantled left, right, and center. People are leaving. I don't think it's going to last more than a couple more weeks, probably.
No. And well, it's like, I feel that there's a lot of things going on, especially in this country. I think one of the things that the situation this year, with the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter protests, all of these things are laying bare certain realities of American life that we have not dealt with, that we would like to not deal with directly. And it's very funny in California. Like, I was sheltering at home. We sheltered at home for 3 months. I got a lot of work done. Now they open up. The COVID cases are exploding. You know, and people are saying the hospitals are filling up again. And it's like, well, I think to myself from a reality perspective, like, well, what do you expect? You've got people arguing.
Those people on the beach, eh?
I mean, check this out. Today in California, they closed the beaches for the 4th of July weekend. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department said this morning that we are not going to enforce that on the beaches. We're not going to stop people from, and I think to myself, okay, well then, I hope you're willing to assume the realities of if our hospitals are filling up again. It's just amazing to me that we don't want to deal with the realities. People are talking about, well, I can't wear a mask because I breathe in too much CO2. It's like, come on, man. The masks you're wearing are not preventing CO2 from escaping. And yet we have all these people arguing and screaming about not wearing masks in public. If you go to the grocery store, you wear a mask for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you take it off. And like, I sit around and I look at my fellow countrymen here and I realize, boy, there's a lot of us that really don't live in any kind of reality. And I wonder, how has that happened? Like, how I always thought
life's been good.
Life has
been good. That's
You're
why.
absolutely right.
And we just don't know how good we've got it. And so when life is good and the regular problems which people had 50 years ago, how do I pay my bills? How do I feed my family? How do I keep a roof over my head? For the most part, are gone. So people need to almost create new problems for themselves. And this is why we have, you can disagree with this, but this is why I think we have an explosion in identity politics. Through almost trend and boredom and the desire to stand out in a society that's getting along and going along at a regular pace.
I completely agree with you. I think the greatest example, I mean, we talk about privilege. I think identity politics itself is the ultimate form of living in a privileged society. The fact that you even have time to spend your life thinking that way, it's again, what about the realities of life? Whenever you want to work on a project, like I've worked now in Hollywood for 30 years. And when I've worked on movies, I mean, obviously the arts attract a lot of people who have alternative ways of thinking. And that's one of the reasons I love working in movies, because it's all a bunch of crazy artists and people that are like, to work on movies in itself is insane.
But amazing minds, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I've worked with all kinds of people of every persuasion, and I have had a wonderful time working with all of those people. I mean, a wonderful time. And
come on, Robert, for the audience, please do some name dropping.
Well, okay. Well, first of all,
film dropping. Then, if you not to be so crass, then do some.
Okay. So like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 was where I first started. Who was in that movie? Viggo Mortensen was in that movie. Mm-hmm. Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead was from that film. But I've worked on, when I was a DVD documentarian and making special features, I worked on X-Men, X2. I worked on, Usual Suspects later, but Chronicles of Narnia, Superman Returns, Michael Davis's Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen and Monica Bellucci, Star Trek The Next Generation. I did those documentaries. My own film, Free Enterprise, that starred Eric McCormack. Yes, I mean, I spent 3 years of my life working on those documentaries, and
this is the most precious TV show in the world to me. This.
I mean, and
once they started attacking Angel One and Code of Honor, that was it. I was getting the hard copy straight away.
Well, what's funny about that is, by the way, the amount of money you can get that set for. I mean, it's 178 episodes, all digitally remastered with all of our special features. You can get it for like less than $100.
I got this for. Do you know how much I got this for? 54 British pounds.
And it's worth every
brand
pence.
new. This came sealed fully. Yeah, absolutely. To me, that was the steelest of steals.
And by the way, you start watching those and the way that they've been remastered. I mean, when we would get those new episodes in, I would weep. I remember watching yesterday's Enterprise for the first time because the way it was shot, the way Marvin Rush lit the it was just like, it was amazing. And to finally see episodes like The Enemy, you know, in HD when the blacks were truly black, you know. And what I mean by that, I mean the actual color black.
The color,
the color black. Because when you were down in those caves, it was kind of smeary gray because they were all finished on tape, you know, and so you never actually got the quality of film. And working on those things were you know, was amazing. But also, like, when you, I'll give you an example. When I worked on Superman Returns, so I was on set every day for over a year. And you know, you're wandering around with a camera, you're sticking a camera in everyone's face, and you become friends with them. And like on your off time, we would party and go to dinners and hang out together because we're in a foreign country for a year.
Sure.
And what people don't understand is movie making, and I'm talking about production, because there's different kinds of Hollywood. And when you're working on actual production, it's almost like being amongst people in a circus or a gypsy caravan, or you can't say gypsy anymore because that's, but a Romani caravan. But people that are traveling around and that are artists, and they're nuts and they're great. And, you know, you have lots of people of all different persuasions, whether they're LGBTQ, different ethnic minorities. And you quickly...
Parker Posey must have been fucking nuts.
Oh my God. My love for her knows no bounds. She was just what a terrific lady she is. She's amazing. But when you work with all these people, you immediately fall in love. I mean, maybe it's the artistic impulse or whatever.
Sure.
But everybody is just so much fun and vibrant and interesting. And all of those distinctions quickly fall by the wayside because you're all just people. And, you know, you're working on this shared goal, and then you realize you all have kind of the same thing because you all decided to go into entertainment, or you decided to go into the arts. And another thing, we were talking about this before the show started, the people that you're working with are all very talented. You know, you're not working on a $200 million movie if you're an idiot. You know, you're at the top of your game.
Unless you're the director.
Well, no. I mean,
I'm kidding.
I think look, Superman Returns is really interesting to me because the movie that they made was a half an hour longer. I think the great tragedy, look, there's a lot of things in Superman Returns people don't dig, but I think what was really totally on a tangent, the original movie was 3 hours long. And when they started showing it, like the younger audiences, they didn't know. The movie opens with Superman returning to Krypton. You know, and you see the wrecked Krypton from the Donner version. And then there's this long period with Lex Luthor and going to this Fortress of Solitude. And people were bored. They didn't know. They didn't get it. And so the movie was much longer and I think much more elegant. And I really, really liked that version of the film. And then they realized that, well, we got to cut 30 minutes out of it and make it more palatable for younger audiences. And I think something was really lost in
I think what was lost was Superman punching anything.
Well, but I have to tell you, I mean, it was I think that was
not that it had to be gratuitous, but I still think the plane scene is I still think it's one of the best Superman moments.
But you're right. I mean, what they needed and what was in the sequel script was they needed another they needed the Toy Man, you know, launching a giant robot attack against Metropolis. It needed more of a pulp element to it, I think. And, you know, Brian was, and I went to film school with Brian, so I've known Brian for 30 years, and I've done, full disclosure, I did 4 special editions for him. I did Usual Suspects, X-Men, X2, and Superman Returns. And so, you know, I know him really well. And for all of these sketchy things, I'm a huge fan of Brian's, and all the things that people say about him, I have a lot to say about that. They just don't know him. The problem with Brian is that he's never hidden who he was. And so there's a lot of people that don't understand that about him. So people have gone after him. And I just know things about Brian. Whenever somebody comes after him with an accusation, I'm like, that isn't true. I happen to know that it isn't true. People are like, come on, Rob, how do you know anyone? I'm like, oh, I know Brian.
Yeah,
I can honestly, I mean, it's not like Brian, I'll tell you something about Bryan Singer. He's been the most loyal, at least to me, as an employer and a friend. He's incredibly loyal. If I were to ever be caught in a hotel room with dead people and I had a butcher knife in my hand with blood dripping from it, and I was arrested the first person I would call would be Bryan Singer. He'd come and get me out of jail. The first thing he'd say to me, he'd be like, "Come on, dude, did you do it?"
Yeah, what did you?
But he would know. He would say that, but it would be funny because he would know that I wasn't the one who did it, or if I did do it, there would be some great story there.
Sure.
But still, I do think that when you work on films, you meet a bunch of great people, and you see it's very different from the decisions and that are made in the writer's room or whatever. But I'm speaking strictly of production. But it is a great. I really love it. I really love, and when people are always talking about, like, it's so funny in LA, it's like, oh, these Hollywood elites, you Hollywood elites. And I'm like, everybody that I've met working in production came from somewhere else. They had a dream and they had to put up with the unbelievable monumental BS that happens in the entertainment business. And to stay in this business, one, you have to be somewhat insane, to even try and stick it out. And two, the people that are here for a long time, we've managed to somehow hold on to our dreams, and we keep
an industry
working.
Of rejection.
Oh,
that's what people don't understand. They see the people on the screen, but they don't see the 100 times they've been told, 1,000 times they've been told no. And you've got to pick yourself up every time and hit that audition or hit that tape or get those headshots out or go, positive to get that screen time, to get that position up there.
And all anybody pays attention to is either the actors or the directors or the very top of the line people, but everybody that works on films, that goes from project to project to project, these are craftspeople, artisans, technicians. They really know their jobs. So when you're working in production, you're working with a class of people, first of all walks of life, but you're working with people that are very good at their jobs, and it's really inspiring to be in that environment. And it's different than what we normally hear about, but it's also it's you need these people to make they're the ones that are actually making what it is that we watch.
Yeah. So my brother in-law, he's in the industry, so he's done TV, film. He's done a lot of that. So you get the stories, and I see how hard when he goes on shoot, how hard he works. It's absolutely insane.
It's insane.
And he gets pittance. He gets pittance for it, and it's just like, and they keep asking him back because he's so good.
Right.
And it's just like, the frustrating element of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you're so good, it's like, give us a pay rise then.
I know.
Give me some.
I know. Story of my life.
Yeah. But it's so, when you do love something, you get swept away in it, you kind of, depending obviously on your circumstance, person to person, but you get swept up in the dream. This is what I've wanted to do. I got to take this on the hopes, on the proviso that one day it will develop into something bigger and better.
Yeah.
Same with you. Like, for instance, with YouTube, when I started this, I was living off life savings to keep me going. I wasn't making a bean. I didn't make a bean on YouTube for 4 years.
Yeah. No, and I'll tell you something. Speaking of YouTube, there's a lot of people in Hollywood that really don't, like, I talk to my friends and I can tell, like, I've been on YouTube now for 5 years. I was brought on by the late great John Schnepp on it was AMC Heroes. Then I did Collider Heroes for 3.5 years. Then he passed away. And then John Campia, who I did Heroes with, asked me to come on his show. Then people said I should start my own show. So I've been doing it now. Last April of this year, it marked my 5th year on YouTube. Now, I never thought when I started doing this that, like you said, that it would be, you could make a living doing it, or that people would, it's like, I look at it this way. When we do a 2-hour show or something and people give us a super chat or they tip us or whatever, at first I had a problem with that. Then I'm thinking, you know what? I mean, I go to a rock concert that's 2 hours long, and I'm not like equating myself with, Bono, but I'm saying when we go on, we are providing entertainment. And I realize that I watch a lot of people's YouTube channels. When I watch Joe Rogan, like he had Brett Weinstein on the other day, and I watched that show for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, that's 3 hours. That's a produced show. Like
Mm.
even what we're doing right now. You have the equipment. You reached out. You asked me on. I have the equipment to do it. We're paying for whatever software licenses we pay for. We have to pay for our internet. I've got a website that I have to maintain. So it is a job and it is a business, and we are being creative, and it's a whole new entertainment outlet. And if you're doing things regularly, like you called me up, you scheduled this time, you know, you're doing work and you're providing entertainment for your audience that they wouldn't normally. Like I don't just say yes to everybody who calls me up. I mean, you and I obviously talked, and I'm like, I would totally go on your show because I know that any conversation you and I have is going to be worthwhile. And not only is it worthwhile for us, but it's worthwhile for an audience to listen to. And I think that's what's really important. And this kind of discourse, I mean, what are these YouTube shows but people talking, exchanging ideas in a civil manner? And that's something that's really important now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, these are my show isn't massively produced. This is my office in my house.
Same thing with me, you know.
The entertainment comes from our knowledge, our love, our understanding, whatever you want to pool it as, of the fandoms of geekdom.
And it's a lifelong avocation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like you and I just decided to jump into this out of fashion.
No. I mean, I wasn't busting my ass for 5 years as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surrounded by thousands, tens of thousands of things in this room that I'm sitting in, and I'm a lifer, man. I mean, I started watching Star Trek when I was 5 years old, you know, and I wasn't just watching it, buying the books and going to and studying it in conventions and meeting people and then making a movie with William Shatner. I mean, I'm a lifer.
I my whole life as a kid is the start, you know. There is no time that I recall where I'm not interested in this. You know, as a kid, I'm watching cartoons. I'm watching Doctor Who, the original series. I'm watching Star Trek, the original series. And then when you're getting bombarded with ideas and imagination, and I'm generation like yourself, I didn't grow up with the internet.
No, me neither. I didn't either.
I had nothing like this. We barely had. I think when I was a teenager, maybe like 10, we came back with a 28-inch TV. We thought we were the dog's bollocks. We thought we were the best thing in the world. 28-inch.
Yeah,
28-inch. Most families had like a 14-inch TV in their front rooms. And I was going out, and then I was watching these shows, and those shows would fuel me to get involved with something else. And then when I started getting into literature, I would be fascinated by Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone, the fighting fantasy books, which leads on to Chronicles of Pern and all of that, the Pern, stuff. And then that leads on to suddenly I discovered The Prisoner as an early teenager. And as an early teenager, you're watching The Prisoner. It's the most fascinating thing you've ever seen in your life.
That's when I discovered it. It was brought over to the United States on public broadcasting, PBS or public broadcasting, where you have like Sesame Street and the Electric Company and documentaries. There wasn't a lot to watch on PBS for me that I was necessarily interested in, but The Prisoner was something that we only heard about. Like I'd read about it in Starlog and, little bits and pieces. And then to be able to actually see it was amazing. It was an amazing thing. And then like you said, as a teenager, I'm like, what is this? This is, I was obsessed. And then because there was no internet, there's no Wikipedia entry on The Prisoner. So you had to go out and like find it. Like I made friends with the old ladies that worked, the old ladies that worked at my bookstore, and Island Books, my local bookstore. I was always going and I'm like 12 and I'm ordering all of these books, and I'd have to wait for these science fiction books or horror novels to come in and reference books or whatever. And when they would, it was just like for me, getting a new science fiction novel that I wanted to read was like Avengers Endgame opening now. It was just as exciting if Stephen King released a new book, if a new Star Trek novel came out or whatever. It was a big deal, but you had to go get it. Like there was effort, and I had to take a bus. So you're like, okay, it's the bookstore opens at 10 a.m. The bus comes at 9:15. I can get on the bus. I can go down, I could go get a cup of coffee or something and wait till Island Books opens. And then, I get the book. I mean, it was a paperback book and I would have to make a journey to go buy it. And then I would take the bus home and go into my room and read the whole thing. And, it was so that the effort that was made to be a fan. And then if you wanted to go to conventions or see movies in Seattle, my parents weren't always available to drive me places. So sometimes I'd be taking 2 and 3 buses and it would take like 90 minutes to get where the movie theater was that you wanted to go see, like some obscure, like if I wanted to go see like Ken Russell, we had an art house theater. The Neptune would play like Ken Russell movies. Like you could go see Tommy, and I'm like, oh, I got to go out. You get the calendar of what they showed every month and then you'd make the plans and you'd call friends up and go, hey man, we gonna get on the bus and go see these films. And we would watch anything and everything. And it was, you were soaking it all in, but because you had to go get it, everything that I think your mind was even more open. You just soaked it up like a sponge.
Yeah, I remember particularly Fallout, the final episode of The Prisoner, episode 17.
Oh, that was,
and that's when it says filmed on location at Port Merion, Wales. And that was just like my eyes became saucers. And I was straight out next day. I was straight down to the bookshop, straight into the geography section. I'm looking for maps of Wales, looking for where Port Merion was on the map.
Right.
Where was it located? This became a life mission that one day I would go to Port Merion. And about 10 years later, after discovering never going, my brother and I, we would every weekend would go somewhere. We'd just get in the car, we'd drive somewhere. We'd go to Bridlington, we'd go to somewhere by the sea, Blackpool, Whitley Bay. We'd just go somewhere by the sea and we'd just have a day out. And then one day he says, he picks us up and he said, do you fancy going to Port Merion? And I was just like, drive. And we drove from, and I'm a Yorkshireman, which it's a fair distance. We drove all the way down to the west coast, the northwest coast of Wales, where Port Merion is. And I get there and it's no longer the green dome, it's a copper dome because of lightning.
Yeah.
But I just arrived and it was just like, it's so small. Right. It's so small compared to what you think it is. But it's brilliant because the number 6's house is actually a gift shop. And it's tiny. Absolutely tiny. But just going out onto that balcony area where the door is and just looking out, your heart, it's full of nothing but love. It's just everything is swelling. You love the world. You love everything around you. You love the couple who you don't know that's just walking around looking at postcards.
Well, they're all in on it, man. They're all in on it.
Because we're all here for the same reason.
Right.
I'm sure there might be the odd one or two that's like, oh no, I just really love Clough Ellis. I just really love his architecture. It's amazing. Right. William Clough Ellis, yes. I just absolutely adore it. But 99.9 of us, we're there because of The Prisoner. And we're there because we loved the show and we needed to connect with it on a physical, even in a physical way. This is a physical connection. But just being at the location, this incredible little village that was built by this eccentric and being part of it, you think I'm now part of The Prisoner.
Yeah.
I'm part of that mythos. I never appeared on tape, but I'm part of that now. You've made that connection.
Well,
the power of fandom.
It's funny. I've always wanted to go. I've never been there, and I've wanted to go there since I was 12 or something. And it I have a number of now books on The Prisoner. When it was finally out on Blu-ray, it's like I got the British Blu-rays that because it came in that cool box. And it's funny now because
the fold-out one.
Yeah, well, it comes in a box like this, and it's like a shoebox, and you open it up.
Okay, I got a slightly different.
It's cool. But what's funny to me now is especially with genre fandom, nowadays, The Prisoner was such a seminal pivot point in my young fan life because of the issues that it explores. You know, the issues of talk about identity politics in a different way. Like, who are you and what does it mean?
That's the mother of identity politics, that show.
I mean,
and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And so it's funny to me when I talk to, because working in the fan space and working at Collider, I work with a lot of people that are much younger than me.
Sure.
And it's hard for me to, I have to remember that when I saw The Prisoner as a teenager, like you did, it became a big thing. Like, it dominated how I thought about other fandoms, you know, and when you'd see, there's even an episode of Next Generation called The Schizoid Man.
The Schizoid Man, yes.
Which, and I'm like, somebody was a Prisoner fan, you know,
and that's the 6th episode of The Prisoner, Schizoid Man.
Right. And it's nowadays, The Prisoner is barely a blip on anyone's radar. You know, they're just people, just young fans, because there's 10 times as much as science fiction, fantasy, and horror and all of these things have become acceptable, have become the norm. There's so much more of it. And back then, the Prisoner was unique. You know,
I started dating a girl last year, and we'd have movie night on a Saturday. And so, you know, you'd have your, you know, just your regular kind of flicks.
Right.
And then I said 1 week, I said, because we kind of like choosing, you know, alternating. And I said, I want to run something past you. I want to see what you think. Now, this is from the 60s. This is a TV show from the 60s, 67. Yeah. So, we'll, you know, see how it goes. If you're not enjoying it, just tell me. We'll put it on to something else. So she says, okay. So we put it on, and we watch it, and we watch it all the way through.
Did you start with Arrival?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Because there's different order. I mean, you have to start with Arrival, but there's, you know, the various orders that
to watch. There's people. Yeah, with the chimes of Big Ben, not necessarily.
Yeah, I never like to show chimes of Big Ben to people right away.
No, you know? no. The Arrival's the perfect. You got to start with Arrival. So we watch it. Says she enjoys it. Time goes on. We break up. We break up. It happens. That's life. And I don't hear from her for a few months. And then I get this text out the blue one day, and it was just, hey, what was the name of that show that we watched together? The 60s one where the guy was on that weird island. And I was just like, there's another convert.
Right. And yes. and well, it's so strange to me now, because, you know, when I was growing up, there was a finite amount of material that you had to watch. Like, if you were going to be a real fan of science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, when it came to television shows and movies, there was kind of like this core group of stuff that you had to watch. And The Prisoner was one of those things, and it was hard to find. But nowadays, and also the attitude was, I don't know if this is the same for you, but when I was growing up, I never considered when something was made. Like, I knew that I had to see at some point Fritz Lang's Metropolis, you know, 1927. Yes. And it's like there was no, if you were going to be a fan of science fiction movies, you had to watch. And there were things like, you had to watch Day the Earth Stood Still. You had to watch Forbidden Planet.
Yes.
You know, there was all, and same with horror. You had to watch
Forbidden Planet is the gateway to it all.
Yeah, you had to watch the Universal monster movies. You know, you had to watch certain, and there were things you just had to watch. So when I was a teenager, I spent my time watching these things. Like, I had to go through and see these seminal works that spanned the 20th century. You know, there wasn't, but now it's very different. Now there is, and I even say it all the time, that pop culture now lasts about 20 years. If something's older than 20 years, it sort of falls away for certain people.
Ooh, I think they're generous, to be honest with you.
I know. There's demarcation points of what to watch. But in my mind, when I was growing up, I had to see everything. Like, there was no option to not see certain things. And now I try and show people, or I recommend, like I speak at a high school or a college, and I'll tell people that you got to watch these things. They have no idea what I'm talking about. Even people that are at a film class. And I'm like, you guys, you don't know this? Like, and it's strange to me because it used to be like, no, you have to watch these things. It wasn't, you can't be a fan without watching this stuff because everything.
War of the Worlds,
I
think it's the same. It's something that it progressively has to be. Boom.
This is the Australian. We did this on my show. My girlfriend and I did this on our movie review show last night. And it's so funny because it was my favorite movie when I was 5 years old, War of the Worlds. And watching it now, it's she was saying she'd never seen it. She was like, this movie is so influential. There's so many things in this movie that have informed all of these other movies that came after. And I said, and that's why there's this evolutionary process.
Huge ripoff of War of the Worlds, in the sense of that. And then that leads to Jeffrey Wayne's War of the Worlds, the musical version of it.
Which I thought, every kid would listen to.
I loved it. Absolutely adored it.
I mean, I got the remastered CD over there. You can't, nowadays people are like, wait, what? They don't know what you're talking about. I'm just like, how can you, wait, what? But nowadays there's so much more stuff to see. So if you're born in, say, 2000, you're 20 years old and you're a huge fan of all this stuff, the stuff that you have to go back and watch, you'll never get there. There's so much new stuff that why would you go back? And when you do go back and watch things, I totally understand if you were born, in the 90s or something or forward. It's really difficult when you live in a world where Jurassic Park exists and you have photorealistic dinosaurs. It's really hard to go back and watch, say, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. You watch some black and white stop motion monster. It's really hard to put yourself in that mindset and get something out of it. It's tough.
Yeah, I get that. That's why I think something like The Prisoner is still should be still as relevant today as ever, because it's a psychological show.
Right, and also the way it was made, it has a lot of the editorial techniques. There's jump cutting and things.
Yes.
It makes it really contemporary.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's this period thing, yet it's not, and there's enough in it that The Prisoner, I think, is something people can definitely enjoy. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, when they remade it in the noughties, David Castellers? I don't know how to pronounce his surname. Jesus Passion of Christ.
Jim Caviezel.
Yeah. When Jim Caviezel took over the role of Six, and Ian McKellen was number 2.
Yeah,
I was interested in the way that they were going to develop it, and then you realize when you watched it, they didn't get it.
No,
whoever redeveloped it just didn't get the show, didn't get what it was trying to do.
I feel exactly the same way. I was asked to moderate that panel at Comic-Con. So I did, and I was sitting right next to Jim Caviezel, who he was totally nervous. He'd never done a panel discussion like this before, and I said, "Don't worry, man, I got you." And and we had a really interesting conversation, and I really wanted it to be great.
Yeah,
and like you, I felt the same way, man. I'm like, you're absolutely right. They just didn't get it.
Didn't get it.
Well, because
I think he made it up in Person of Interest. He was fantastic in that. Right. It was a great show.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy too. Such a nice guy. But the see, that's another thing. It's been great having this. Like, people would say, I got to sit down and moderate a panel discussion with Jim Caviezel.
Sure, yeah.
That in itself, I would think that was something that was cool to do.
Absolutely,
and those are things I don't even think about. And it's that doing what I've done has afforded me those opportunities, and none of them, I don't take any of them for granted. It's so cool that we now live in a world where, you can pretty much call anybody up now with our lockdowns, and there's a lot of people that you wouldn't think that would be open to do interviews that are like, yeah, sure, man, if I can sit at home and do an interview with you, okay. We live in a pretty cool world now.
Yeah, we could connect your West Coast, so you're Pacific time.
Yep.
I'm in UK, 10 a.m. when we started your time, 11 a.m. now. 6 p.m., 7 p.m. for me. I'm doing podcasts with Ethan Van Sciver at 4 o'clock in the morning, or Cecil at 4 o'clock in the morning. But we can connect. We can connect. It doesn't matter anymore where we are.
No, I mean, you sound like you're in the room with me.
Yeah, same. Yeah, you could be in that room there, and we're just literally just shooting the shit, between rooms. And yeah, this is the beauty of being able to connect. And just already, I mean, there's no plan when it comes to these conversations.
Right.
An hour of flow. Holy shit, we were flow. It was 10, 15 minutes of flow before we even started. It was just, I was like, oh shit, you gotta be careful here because we could blow everything, and sort of try it. But it just shows the power of fandom and how important it is to people. And when you just see, I don't think anyone who's watching this, and it's like 1,300 people, which is fantastic, and thank you very much. I don't think anyone who's watching this can say, oh, these guys, they don't give a shit about stuff. But what I'm trying to say is everything that we're accused of in the media, everything that we are demonized by the studio or by the director or whatever with their disposable film, which doesn't lead up, because we've already discussed in such a brief period of time, almost like the gateway and the seminal pieces of geekdom. And when you truly get into it, whether it be comics, whether it be superheroes, whether it be science fiction, regardless whether or not you're a nerd or a sporty guy or whatever you may be, when you get into it, your mind wants more. It needs to assimilate more. And so you invariably start to ask the questions. When I was collecting comics, I was very specifically Batman to start with. And then it got to the point where I said to the person, I like Batman, and I want something similar to this, not too dissimilar to this, but I want something a bit different. Where do I go? And they said, Longbow Hunters, Green Arrow. That's a good place to go. So I get the Longbow Hunters, and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, I need Mike Grell's Green Arrow in my life. Right. And then you're reading Mike Grell, who probably comes across and probably is a massive liberal. But he's writing this character so well and so even though he has his very specific his very specific ideology, he's writing it in such a way that he's endearing, the character's endearing, fully understand, comprehend every single aspect of why he's doing it, the reasons and the justice behind it all. Yeah. And that leads on to other things, and that's just comics. And as we discussed, sci-fi shows, it moves on. It goes, oh God, I have to watch Fritz Lang's Metropolis. That's an absolute. And then you get the 4K remaster of that. And you're like, and then you watch the 4K remaster of that, and you're like, oh my God. It makes it even more beautiful.
Right. And it's such a strange, like, what I love now is my favorite thing is seeing classic literary adaptations happening. Like the fact that Apple's plunging a bunch of money into a Foundation series. I mean, when I read the Foundation trilogy growing up, it was mind-blowing to me. And the character of Harry Seldon. So for those of you who don't know, the Foundation trilogy, the original Foundation trilogy, is basically about this guy, Harry Seldon, who has created something he calls psychohistory, where through the actions of civilization, he can predict the downfall of an empire. Like he could have predicted the fall of Rome and hopefully prevent that from happening. And basically he predicts his own civilization from the city Trantor, which is like Coruscant or whatever, that the society will fall. And hijinks ensue, and it goes from there. But the fact that they're making these shows, if they're good, and same with Dune, the movie. By the way, I've read the script for Dune, and it's fantastic. So I can't wait to see the film and
new adaptation,
the new Dune, and it's a very faithful adaptation of the book. And I think a lot of people, obviously film fans who might have seen the David Lynch version, which encompasses the whole first book pretty much. This version of Dune is only the first half of the first book. That if you go and you read Frank Herbert's 6 books, people think that Paul Atreides is like a hero. which is not what happens in the rest of the books. And it's so funny to me that what I hope is that when people watch Dune, that they'll go back and they'll read those books because they are mind-blowing. And there's so many interesting concepts. And the more that these great the canonical great works of science fiction, as more people go and adapt them, and I hope they're all successful, because I'm worried that Dune won't be very successful because it's a pretty heady book. But now, in a post Game of Thrones world, people understand more about the political machinations of things, and they understand the world building and all of that. So our audiences have been more educated to sort of buy into what they're getting. And one of the great things about the Dune script is it does a lot of great world building, far more than we ever saw in David Lynch's Dune, and far more than we saw in the Dune and the Children of Dune TV miniseries. So they do a really good job doing that. I'm just hoping people will dig it. And
do you think Game of Thrones might have actually caused too many problems in the final couple of seasons, though, undone all the good work
you know what? I have to say, I was actually baffled by the end of Game of Thrones. I don't understand, because Weiss and Benioff, they shepherded Game of Thrones through the first seasons, the first, let's say 5 seasons, and a pretty wonderful job. And I've never in my life, I don't think I've ever seen something crash and burn as much as the end of Game of Thrones. It's I have it. I mean, I have the whole series on Blu-ray, but I don't know if I'd ever watch it again, because the I love the show so much, but the last, especially for me, it really was the last 3 episodes. It was the Siege of Winterfell on, because you realize, like, did you not have any understanding? Like, here, just since you brought it up, I gotta here's what I don't get. Here's something I just don't understand. So you have established that the Night King had some kind of a strategy. The Night King's wearing armor. He had officers that were standing by him. They had a plan. They knew what they were going to do. So there was something happening here that I felt. What was their plan?
He had a connection to Jon Snow.
He had a connection to Jon Snow, to Bran, to the Three-Eyed, whatever it was. And remember, the idea of the Night's King, and this was introduced at the very beginning of the show, in the first episode of the opening of the series. So I'm waiting for this. I think we all were. And then when you have the Battle of Winterfell, and when that battle was over, I was like, that's it. Like they answered no questions. No. They didn't, like, these guys took down a dragon and used it for air support. From a tactical position, they basically had a bomber that could drop nukes on Winterfell and drop nukes on King's Landing, and none of that. There was no reason for any of that. Like, there was no. And when I was watching this, I'm like, how do smart people sit in rooms and sit in an edit bay and cut this all together? Is it just because they wanted it to be over? Well,
they were offered more seasons, but they were running to their Star Wars deal. Which
I watched this and I thought, and then the final episode, like, everyone's trying to tell me Daenerys Targaryen is like, well, she was supposed to go crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, no. So you had the Mad King, but there was nothing. I mean, what Daenerys was doing, she wasn't. She's just going to go. Everything that they built her character up to do and be, they just threw it out the window and have her killing the people of King's Land. It was, for me, it was just dumb. Like,
it was nonsensical.
It was nonsensical, but it just wasn't smart. I'm watching the show. I love this show so much because it was so smart. And then you get to this point where none of this makes any sense. Like, where's the showdown between her and Cersei? Cersei Lannister, literally in the 8th season of Game of Thrones, sat looking out of her balcony the whole time,
supping wine.
And there was nothing from a story standpoint. Her own machinations, destroying the High Sparrow, and everything that she had done was all for naught.
No.
Like, how do you watch How do you watch a show for 8 seasons and they literally
Jamie's redemption arc? No, all for nothing.
Nothing. And I honestly
Jon Snow 7 seasons building up for a confrontation with the Night King? No.
No, and
nothing.
I mean, what about Hardhome? You know, what about the promise of that episode? And you when I was watching this, I really was baffled as somebody who's worked in the industry now for 30 years, like as a film editor, even though I've mostly worked on low budget movies, the idea of logic when you're sitting in an edit bay with the director, it doesn't matter what movie, every single scene has to have an internal logic. It has to play, that it has to come after the scene, and it has to set up the scene behind it or in front of it.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time thinking of the logistics behind all of this. And I just can't imagine that they sat in an edit bay when they finished, say, that episode, the Battle of Winterfell. And I'm like, first of all, this certainly wasn't nearly as good as the Battle of the Bastards, which was a much better battle that led somewhere. And I'm like, what does it mean? Like, at the end of the day, you've not told us a story. And it's very funny because when I worked on I did a piece on editorial on the Two Towers Blu-ray and DVD, which is about the editing of the movie. And I learned something. I learned something about filmmaking that was very important. So in the Battle of Helm's Deep, when they were doing the movie, they had about a 40-minute battle. And as the editor says, well, this is a tasty battle. And they thought they'd really licked it. They're like, this is the greatest thing in the world. But then they realized that it got boring. You had what they call battle fatigue because it was just a battle. And what they realized
Revenge of the Sith.
Yes. And what we needed to do was they had to restructure that battle and concentrate on Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas. You have to keep coming back to them because they're our main characters. And we need to see how does the battle progress through their eyes. They have to be in peril. They have to be, Legolas and Gimli have to have some kind of banter. And what they did was they took this long battle that was just, it was monotone. And it was, you watch it for 20 minutes and you're bored. And who would have thought that after this huge battle that they'd shot? But you add the characters back in, because after all, the movie is about those characters. Then the battle becomes tense because it's like, are they going to survive?
Yeah.
You know, no matter what the spectacle is. So, but that's true of any scene in any movie or story. You know, one of the things about Next Generation is when Michael Piller came on in the 3rd season, he said, look, this show is not working as much as it should because we're always going after these outside things. What we have to do is we have to have all of our stories now start with a character, one of our principal characters. And that way the audience is immediately invested. Yeah. So you'd see the stories deal with characters. And the same thing was true of that Battle of Helm's Deep. And I realized, okay, well, that they tried, like, we're going to follow Arya Stark to this battle, but nobody cares about Arya Stark in that battle because the question that battle has posed is, what does the Night King want? Yes. Why is he here? Why has he been doing this?
That question. We're not, the fighting's ancillary. We're needing to know the payoff. We're needing to know why they're here. So I thought we're almost expecting the army to smash through, to literally just smash through them all, smash the way into Winterfell with probably as little opposition as you're going to get. Fall back. What's the plan? Nothing.
That's what I couldn't. I think one of the things that I will always be baffled by in my dying days, as I'm sitting on my deathbed, my life is flashing before my eyes. It's going to stop on that episode of Game of Thrones. And the question that I will take probably into the afterlife is, what the fuck did the Night King want? What did he want?
But he's not even in the books. He's not even in the books. So
and it's like, why is this here? I will wonder till my. And why did they decide to portray Daenerys Targaryen? I understand, it's cool from a spectacle standpoint, but nobody cares about that. I mean, if you think about Game of Thrones, all of these big moments happened in rooms. You know, the Red Wedding happened in rooms where people are like literally sitting having dinner. They're having a meal, and then something so epic happens while they're sitting at the dinner table. You know,
Charles Dance and Arya Stark was some of the best dialogue and just some of the best interaction with characters. I think it was so tense and so interesting to see him open up to a Stark, unknowing that she was a Stark. and the way that he always made her privy to stuff because of the little bits of trust had been built up. This man who would keep his son at arm's length, all of his sons at arm's length, never mind Tyrion, but all of his sons at arm's length. That to me was fascinating kind of stuff. That's the stuff which you just sit there and you watch and you just, I need more. I need more of this dialogue. I need more of this great conversation. I need more. And now it's just
well, I mean, I feel that you've summed up all of modern Star Trek, and that's why it doesn't work. I mean, I've never been, when I saw it, one of the great cinematic disappointments of my life was Return of the Jedi. And I say people are like, what? And I'm like, well, because the only thing that is in Return of the Jedi that I really get into is the final confrontation in the throne room. All of Star Wars is leading up to that. And you think the space battles are nice, the stuff on Endor, whatever. But really the crux of that movie is 3 dudes in a room. Yeah. And it all comes down to, and yes, we get a great lightsaber fight and John Williams' score is great. And the Emperor, you want this, take your Jedi, strike me now. And you're watching all of this stuff. And that's the crux. That's what makes that movie is for as much as I find Return of the Jedi disappointing after Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, you get to that battle at the end, the battle of will. The battle of the the manipulation of the Emperor is magnificent. And like probing, trying to find the weakness, and then it's it's so cleverly done. And that's what makes it great. And I keep watching. Like I've hated modern Star Trek since 2009. I hated Star Trek 2. Star Trek is my favorite thing. Star Trek, the original series growing up, and it's my favorite thing. And I look at, you think it like in terms of like Next Generation, Measure of a Man, basically a story that's set in a room where people are talking during it's a courtroom drama, or like Deep Space Nine, the second to last episode, the penultimate episode of season 1, which is Duet, which is, again, you have a Cardassian in a room in a jail cell talking to Kira. And this is high drama. I feel like I watch these episodes of Star Trek and I'm like, wow, you had a war with the Klingons that was the most discombobulated, weird, not very interesting. And you go back and you watch Sins of the Father from the 3rd season and the what's going on with the Klingon High Council. And that episode is it's 45 minutes long. And you watch that episode, it starts one thing and then you end with Worf's discommendation in 45 minutes. And I mean, like,
which
this
is the I'll tell you an episode. Sorry, episode which I think people need to. Everyone, the whole world here, not talking chat. The whole world needs to stop and watch. And I don't recall the name, but you will. So that's the beauty of it. When the admiral's brought in to find the spy,
the drumhead.
The drumhead.
Gene Simmons plays, not Gene Simmons from Kiss, but Gene Simmons, the actress. Admiral Satie. Admiral Satie.
And I think the whole world needs to sit down and watch that episode right now. Because I think that is just as relevant to what is happening in the world at this very moment. When you look at social medias like Twitter and etc. and cancel culture and stuff like this. And that episode is so beautiful, and Picard's speech.
It's the best Picard speech in the entirety of Next Generation.
Just, I gotta watch that tonight now.
That episode is incredible, and it's what Star Trek does best. And
45 minutes.
45 minutes. And you look at this, and you're like. What I failed to understand, I guess I'm perplexed by this, is that, when I was growing up, and I'm sure when you were growing up as well, it wasn't just, for me, genre fandom, it was a continuum, meaning it was books, music.
Yes.
Like I loved music. I loved bands and mostly European music. I was a big Europop fan. I loved, but like, I was buying.
I knew we got on for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I was always buying UK vinyl, 12 inches, and it started with bands like Depeche Mode and New Order and The Cure because they were new to me when I first started buying music. But I was buying vinyl and 12 inches and and I just loved music, and music
Get
was
into
so.
Wolfsheim at all?
What's that?
Wolfsheim. Did you get into Wolfsheim? German.
I know the band, but I was not a huge fan.
You need to. Oh man,
I know, but people have told me that. People have told me that. But it was all. It was music, movies, books, comics. It was a continuum, and when you were a fan of this stuff, you read all of it, and toys. It was all part of the same thing, and so it was, you were reading books, you were listening to bands, and a lot of bands were obviously influenced. Like I remember watching when I first saw Tony Scott's The Hunger, and the Hunger
David Bowie.
Yeah, well, yeah, Bowie's in it.
Susan Sarandon.
Susan Sarandon, but the movie opens with Bauhaus. It opens with Peter Murphy singing Bela Lugosi's Dead. And I was a huge goth music fan, and that's kind of the stairway to heaven of goth music, that song. And you're looking at David J. and Daniel Ash, who later founded Tones on Tail and Love and Rockets. And it's like you're watching this, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing I had ever seen, because I was a huge Bauhaus fan. And when I went and saw The Hunger, I'm like, I can't believe this movie is opening with literally Peter Murphy singing Bela Lugosi's Dead. And so because I was already a fan of the band, it informed, and goth music in general, it informed my whole experience of that movie. And I'm like, this is like, and same with like The Crow. When I saw The Crow with the soundtrack as well, I'm like, these movies, like if you're a fan of goth music and goth culture, these films have so much more relevance to you, and it was you couldn't have one without the other, and I loved all of that. And I feel and you have to have read certain poets like, Byron or something, or Keats.
Probably I think the war poets, Owen and Siegfried Sassoon, and
yeah, I mean, all of it fed into it. Like it's so funny to me because I'm a huge Winston Churchill fan. Like one of my things that I most want is a first edition of his History of World War II. It's like 5 volumes. When I was in London in 2012, I found one. It was huge. There's no way I could have afforded it. but like, and now I cancel culture wants to cancel Winston Churchill. And I'm like, yeah, come on, man. Like, really? Like what?
The Prisoner. This goes back to The Prisoner. The final episode of The Prisoner. When they arrive back in the UK, and the kid, top hat kid, Alexia, whatever, and he's on the motorway, and he's jumping from one side of the motorway to the other, hitchhiking. Cars are going in that way. He's going to the other. Cars are going in that way. And Patrick McGowan was interviewed. And they were saying, why did the kid at the end? Why was he like jumping between the sides of the motorway, hitchhiking? And McGowan said because it was an allegory for youth not knowing the direction in which it's going in, and it'll just pick up any ride that it can get. This is what I think this is. It's any ride that they can get. I don't think 95% of these people know what they're shouting at. They're just shouting.
Right. Well,
and this is what mob mentality does. It sweeps you along.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people nowadays, this is my own personal theory. I don't, when we're carrying around supercomputers in our pockets that are designed to give us, people talk about those dopamine shots or whatever, but basically it's connecting you to a larger world out there that can make you feel less alone. And you're getting all this stuff that you want, all this information that you want, it's to make you feel good. Well, you want the world to make you feel good. And so these movements where everybody can talk about you feel the same way that I feel. So our feelings we're going to band together in these groups, and we're going to make sure that the world understands our feelings. So we always feel this way. The world must feel the way we feel about things. Now, the problem with that is, as I always like to say, the universe is indifferent. They don't know yet what suffering truly is. I mean, a lot of people feel they're victimized. And I understand. I don't mean to, when I say suffering, I'm talking about war. I'm talking about
yeah,
the
yeah.
London Blitz. I'm talking about the fact that what's going to happen. You I get the world that you live in. You might have been wronged and there's horrible things. People do horrible things to each other. But I'm talking about the world that you live in. You have existed. The fact that you have a cell phone at all means that there's an entire infrastructure that has allowed you to be a part of this world. But what happens when there is no cell phones and there is no internet and you have to worry about roving bands of marauders coming into your house with guns, raping and killing people that you love, and they don't give a shit about your feelings? What happens if you live in a war-torn environment? And we in the West, we don't know what that is. We don't understand, and we don't understand how close we can come, how quickly the thin veneer of civilization will be taken away, and all of these identity politics, all of this stuff is the first to go because it's a luxury.
It's absolutely, yeah.
And when somebody comes up to you, and that's why I feel that you know, being able to have conversations with people, being able to hear both sides of a story. Like I always say on my own show, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear yet. Or you have yet to, all you have to do is listen. I really believe that. But now we live in a world where nobody wants to even listen. They just want to hear their own point of view. And if anybody has a different point of view, they take it. Like I cannot believe some of the things that happen with activists in the world. Activists who I would be allied with. But then when they go after somebody to cancel them, I'm like, wait a minute, even what you're looking for, what you want in the world is a lot more three-dimensional and nuanced than even you're saying. And so if you want what you're fighting for and what you want, when you go out and make these blanket statements and demand the rest of the world fall into lockstep with whatever statement you're making, your statement is not taking into consideration a lot of things that you haven't even thought of yet. So
but we're getting to the point where the anti-fascist is becoming the fascist.
It's just unbelievable to me. I sit there and I'm like, you guys needed to go read more science fiction when you were younger. You know, you really needed...
The person who's demanding equality is doing it through authoritarianism.
You know,
it's they have no idea what they're shouting at. Like this again, they have no idea what they're truly shouting about.
No,
you don't want equality. You are describing superiority every single time. And that's what you think is equality. It's not. You are putting down to lift up. So you're not after equality. You're not after parity at all. That is the last thing that you want. You want to be that top of the tree, and you'll shout down anyone who disagrees. Very apt that you say that. The video that I put up today before we had the conversation was in regards to Max Visaggio, a trans writer in comics, who, and I'm going to be polite, has received their position through their diversity, because their books don't sell. They're rock bottom when it comes to the books, and yet their book was picked up for a television series on Sci-Fi. It was immediately cancelled upon viewing, because this wasn't an earned position. We discussed very briefly before we went live about you're a believer in the meritocracy. I'm a believer in the meritocracy. I believe in your skill should be the determination, regardless of what your color, race, creed is. That's why I think when things are submitted via blank, canvases, and you can just read the body of work, that's the fairest we're ever going to get.
Yeah.
Because people are literally just going to read the work and say, this is great. We need this person in. Anybody could walk through that door. Anybody, a Christian, a Muslim, a disabled person, a black person, a white person, a woman, a man, a trans character. It doesn't matter. Anyone could walk through. They would be the creator of that great body of work. And this person took to Twitter, and they have been trying to cancel a very good comic book writer and artist. And the very first thing they said before they went off into their rant of trying to cancel them in a disgusting manner, because they tried to me too them without me tooing them. Oh,
Wow.
I'm not saying that he's done this, and this to me, because he never did. But I've already associated him with those words.
Right.
That sort of business.
Which is really terrifying.
It's disgrace. It's an utter disgrace.
Because it can be done to anyone. And then how do you defend against that?
I did an Angry Joe thing the other day. The same. He had these terrible spurious charges. The woman put out a statement. I took an hour in my video to go through this statement. It was ridiculous. It was a joke. There was so much contradiction, so much that didn't make sense. The only thing that she admits to time and time again in the video is in the statement is lying to the person who she's accusing. So when you're lying to that and etc. Anyway, that turned out to be, and I went for it and she deleted the whole thing, gone. But the very first thing that Mag said before she went into her cancellation statement was, I don't want any sympathy, not that she was going to get any, and I don't want any advice or replies. They just wanted to speak. They didn't want to hear. It was this arrogance of my voice is gospel. And this is it. You're not. If people actually decided to use social media more responsibly, because this is escalation. Somebody shouts at somebody, somebody's gonna shout back. My cat's going crazy. People are going to shout back, and then other people are going to join in, and it's just going to become a shouting match. And until people start to use social media responsibly, until we get situations like this where we could be diametrically opposed politically, not that that should matter anything whatsoever in life, because 20 odd years ago, I wasn't asking people what their politics were. I was asking who their favorite superhero was. I was asking what their favorite television show was. I wasn't. And then if they said, hey, I like Babylon 5 and I'm a Star Trek guy, I'm not going, oh, well, unfortunately, our conversation now comes to an end because being a Star Trek guy and you being a Babylon 5 guy, we can no longer converse. That's it. Sorry. And this is what we're in now. Well, we're in, I can't talk to this person because they're this way politically aligned or that way politically aligned.
I have to tell you, like, my whole thing is that I think that in our space, I call it the genre pundit space, meaning that science fiction, fantasy, horror, and all that, we're all fans. So we begin from a commonality.
Sorry, can I just just for 1 second? You say we're all fans. I'm just going to say my thing. I think there is actually a subsection of fake fans.
Well,
I think that there is a subsection in this commentary market space that we're in that is potentially a fan for the sake of the job or for the money or for the. That's all I have to say. Well,
no, I don't disagree with you. I was speaking more to our audience. I think anyone who's tuning into our shows that spends like, if you're going to watch a 2-hour show like this conversation you and I are having, you have to be a fan. Otherwise and so there have been times, and I found this very interesting. So I went on Geeks and Gamers with Jeremy. Mm-hmm. Now I didn't know Jeremy. Like, I didn't know him personally. Mm-hmm. We had a delightful conversation. I really enjoyed it. He was very respectful. He was very nice. He invited me on a show. I thought we had a great time. After I went on that show, there were people that said, how can you go on to his show because he's this and he's that and I'm like, Jeremy and I had a really nice conversation. We might, as you just said, be diametrically opposed politically, but I see that he's a fan and we have common ground. And if he and I can go and have a nice conversation with one another and people know that we're very far apart politically, I think that says something. I think that's meaningful. And I think it matters when, and Jeremy's since then has had nothing but nice things to say about me. He's said unsolicited. He's said nice things about me on Twitter and in social media. And he was, and yet I had my own little dust up, at the beginning of this month with people I work with for like 4 years who they came after me harder than I've ever been come after by anybody before. And it made me realize that they didn't really know me at all. People that I work with, they certainly hadn't watched my shows, and
they didn't want to know you. They had clearly had ample opportunity.
And they didn't, there was one person in particular who actually called me a trash person that I've always actually liked. I've never said an unkind word to her ever. And I'm like, look, I was playing a character on this little thing that I'm doing. And I'm like, if you want to know about me, like I've been in this space for 25 years. You know, whether I used to write for Sci-Fi Universe magazine in the 90s, I used to be on a show on the Sci-Fi Channel called SF Vortex. You know, you can figure out what I'm about. You know, this is not and this was all over one tweet. You know, I've tweeted 100,000 times.
How long did you work with them? That person specifically 4 years.
4 years.
And how if you added up the sum total of our conversations together, it would come to
less than an hour.
3 hours, probably.
Yeah, less than even that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I just assume, you know, I've always assumed that people know what I'm all about because I've been out there for a long period of time, but now no one's really paying attention. I mean, and that's fine. The people that are paying attention.
This is why you talk.
Right. And this
is the power of conversation.
And I've often thought that and at least with our audience and people like yourself, I know that we have a lot of common ground. Obviously, we love the same things. And when you asked me to come on your show, I thought, oh man, in my mind, I'm like, you're really smart and I really like talking with you. So of course I'll come on your show. You know, it never occurred to me to not. And the idea that any of dialogue of this kind would be somehow shunned by anyone is baffling to me. And that's what I think about how, like, I watch a lot of what they would call like people say to me, I watch Dave Rubin's show a lot because he has people on. People are like, how can you like Dave Rubin or whatever? I'm like, how can you not like Dave Rubin? He has long form conversations with people. And whether it's Bill Maher, who a lot of people don't like Bill Maher, but he has political commentary on HBO. Like, how many other HBO networks are putting on a show that's literally about politics where he tries to get people from both sides of the aisle to come on and talk? You know, he'll have like Ben Shapiro on, or he'll have people that are not from his camp, but he has them on anyway. You know, and I like watching, like, Joe Rogan has these incredible deep dive, long form discussions about
watching Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I love watching his show, and there's people he has on his show that I don't know anything about, but I watch them and I'm like, well, this is interesting.
Yes,
and I'll learn something that I don't know. And I'm thinking,
Robert, do you know what that's called? That's called having an open mind.
That's my whole life, man.
And it's becoming a dying breed, I think, because this is with me. When it came, the reason why I get so frustrated and angry about a lot of what's going on in fandom is because, to me, growing up, fandom was always the greatest equalizer.
Yeah.
Because everybody, we were all brought together through our love of whatever it may be. Let's just say, for argument's sake, Star Trek. So it didn't matter if you were Labour and I was Conservative, or I was Conservative, Labour and they were Conservative. It wouldn't matter if I was black and they were white, etc. It wouldn't matter if they were gay and I was straight. It wouldn't matter if they were disabled and I'm not. None of it would matter. None of it at all. We're in a convention together. We're in a chat room together. Wherever we were at that period of time, our commonality is the fandom.
Yep.
And so we have this incredible... This is why I hate the word diversity, because somebody that says this is not diverse, that's not diverse, you're not diverse of whatever. I say, go out your front fucking door. Go out your door, go to the fucking nearest shop and just walk around. The world is diverse.
Yes.
Everything around you is diverse that you will see. Stop playing this silly game. And now we have these fandoms where we've had the fandom bringing everybody together from all walks of life, with all different thought processes being united under one banner is now being gatekept and torn apart by people saying, well, you can't have this thought, and you can't have that thought, and you can't come from this side of the political equation, and you can't be that color. And if you're this cis or that whatever it may be, and they are the people who are destroying fandoms, because they're getting rid of the beauty of the natural diversity that it always brought in. And they are putting up fences, and they're putting up gates, and they're segregating people. And that is the very thing that you don't want with fandom. The very thing that you don't want. And all that does is the gates, the cells that the people are in, the people in one cell turn around and go, we're off home. We're off. We're out. We're going somewhere else. And then another one does. And another one does. Because every time one of the groups of people leave, they turn on another. Because it's not good enough. Suddenly that group's the problem group. And then that one goes. So then the next one comes along. And this is how it will always be. Unless we get this, and it ultimately boils down to diversity of thought. Unless we get people communicating again from both sides of the equation, until we stop demonizing each other because we just have slightly different ways in which we want to either, politically run something or believe in, whether it be pro-life or pro-choice, whatever it may be. That's a decision people are allowed to have. It shouldn't be a breaker in conversation. It shouldn't be a divide. It should be a discussion.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I guess what's so strange to me now is I went in my life when I was growing up, I didn't know any other fans that were in it the way I was. I had a few friends, but the reason that I went to conventions was to meet people that loved the same stuff that I did. And I did meet all kinds of people. Like when I was younger, I was involved in the Seattle movie scene, such as it was. And it was, people that were watching movies, putting on the film festivals. And a lot of the people I met when I was young, I was like, when I started going to places, I was like 13, and I could take the bus around. I met a lot of people. I had a lot of gay friends that were much older than me. Never any problem. Never really thought about it. I was aware of the fact that they were gay, but they were in the Seattle film scene, and it was all about the movies. Nobody was ever untoward toward me or did anything. It was like, dude, I would get a phone call. I got a bootleg of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Or sorry, the first Texas Chainsaw, the original, which I hadn't seen. First time I ever watched it was on a bootleg videotape. I had some friends of mine. They were a gay couple. They'd been together for years, John and Dale. They would call me up and ask me to go, hey, so we got tickets to a screening of this, and before it opened, you want to come? I'm like, yes. And we were movie fanatics. And so when I was growing up, and the same was true, I had lots of different kinds of friends, but it was all based around, like you said, our interests. And I would meet people like at various stores or various events. And I was a video retailer back when I was the manager and buyer of a laser video disc division of a store, Laserdisc store. And we sold CDs and laserdiscs. We were the biggest optical disc only store in the world for a while. All we sold was laserdiscs and CDs, and that's it. Tower Records was bigger, but all we sold was CDs and laserdiscs. I met so many different kinds of people working through that store and being a retailer, and it was all, again, we were all bonded by we never talked politics. It was like you get together and you talk about what's coming out. Are they going to have an AC3 soundtrack on it? Like, is it going to be Letterboxd? And it was always through our interests, and politics and identity. It was never, our identities were, we love this stuff. And that's why we were hanging out.
I had a very similar conversation to this on stream the other day. And my point was, you go and visit your gay friends. What do you say when you greet them?
Hey, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
How you doing?
You know what you don't say when you greet them? What's it like being gay?
Yeah.
What's it like being gay today?
Yeah, no.
Like with your black friends, you don't say, hi, Dave. What's it like being black today, Dave?
No,
It's a non-entity.
no, yeah,
It's a non-entity. But you come on here, you come onto the internet, and it's the fucking be-all and end-all. It's as if that is the driving force, but in the reality, where people truly exist, this is not an entity. People want to get tarred as being bigoted and this and that. No, it doesn't matter. This hasn't been a thing for 30 fucking years or more. We haven't been bothered by these things. I remember the first time I met a gay person. I'd never met a gay person, or at least the first person that was out.
Right.
I might have met a gay person before, but I just didn't know they were gay. Because unless you're exceedingly effeminate,
right,
you will never know, folks. And so I just remember us having a conversation, and I realized how uncomfortable I was in this situation. And we were just talking, and I referred to myself as normal. I said, "Well, I'm normal." And he said he was a lovely guy, and he just looked at me and went, "So I'm not normal." And I was just like, "Oh, got me." I was like, "No, you are normal, yeah." And then we had this great little discussion about his sexuality, and it was just like that was the kind of moment that I kind of understood. Yeah. I just understood. The realization that you hear these tags and you hear these labels, but I didn't even know he was gay for several months until it came out in conversation one night. And then it was like, oh, because you realize you've always treated them as normal because they are normal. Well, because these are just fucking labels which people put, and these are just things which people push. And I was so glad to have gone through that experience, because it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about being what's the word I'm looking for? Tolerant.
Right.
Being tolerant and being understanding, and realizing that just because somebody does something one way doesn't make them any different to you. Just because this person sleeps with people of the same sex didn't make him any different to me. I had no hair. He had hair. Does that make us different? No, it's just little things like that. And when you start to equate them to things like that, it's amazing how normalized they become.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like to me, it's. I remember I was living with this girl, a friend of mine. She'd got a house and she needed a housemate, so I moved in with her. It was after I got divorced, and I remember once she was mad about, I don't know, she said something the neighbors would do. We lived on a nice street, and I said, isn't it interesting that we live here? You have this nice house, you live on this nice street, and you don't know anything that goes on behind the closed doors of your neighbors' houses. That house, that house, that house. Nothing that they're doing behind their closed doors has anything to do with your life.
Yes.
Now, when they come out of their door and you come out of your door and you see everybody in the neighborhood's pretty pleasant. Hey, how are you? They watch out for each other's houses and everything. So what they're doing in their private lives has no bearing on yours. Zero. No. And yet, when they come out onto the street and you meet your neighbors, somebody might have a party and invite you, go over, and everybody's perfectly pleasant and nice, and everybody's looking out for one another, and it really doesn't matter. And so that's why I found it's been frustrating to me. I feel like I always wanted to live in the future. I was always looking forward to the future, and being a child who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, the 80s, with all of our pop culture, as crazy as the fashion might be, with this crazy melange of music, and everything was melding together, and you could listen to techno bands, you could listen to metal bands, you could listen to hip hop, you could listen to all these things within 1 hour. Radio stations would play all of this kind of diverse music. Everything in the 80s was so interesting because pop culture was so informing. Television was being informed by music, and it was so interesting. And I figured that, wow, isn't this great that there's all pop culture was so diverse. And I like
the plays on gender with your David Bowies and stuff.
Oh yeah, and Prince. I'm a huge
always
Prince fan.
Playing with that.
So I always thought that we would be living in this really cool future. I'm like, yeah, man, the future is going to be great. We're going to get all of this kind of craziness. And I was reading a lot. Yeah, I was reading a lot of like cyberpunk. William Gibson put out Neuromancer in '84. And, you know, I was reading a lot of what I guess now would be considered progressive sci-fi, but it didn't label itself that. It just was that. And yeah. And like, you know, like you said, glam rock and playing around with gender roles. I mean, I remember watching a movie. There's this movie called Liquid Sky, where the lead actress plays both the male and female lead in the movie, Anne Carlisle. I was like, how cool is this? You know, it's set in the underground punk New York fashion scene where gender was fluid and people's sexuality. It was really, so I just figured that we would be moving into that world, which I thought was, this is really exciting. We're gonna live in this awesome sci-fi world where people are gonna augment themselves. It'll be transhumanism, and we're gonna get all this stuff happening. You know, it's gonna be great. And that's because that's what everything I was interested in was pointing in that direction. Now we're here, and I feel we have completely regressed. I never thought that I would look back at the 80s as this very crazy, diverse era where the music was cool, the sci-fi was cool, the movies were cool, especially nowadays. I'm like, what the hell happened to us? And I'm wondering, is it because people are only, see, the thing was, in the 80s, you never knew what you were going to get. Like, it was like, what is this weird thing? I'm going to go see it, or I'm going to go listen to it, or I'm going to go experience it, or somebody's putting on some weird fashion show in a club. I'm going to go see that. Like, you didn't know what it was going to be. So when you were exposed to it, it hit you on its own for what it was. It wasn't something you didn't think to yourself, well, I wish it was this way, or this isn't exactly my politics, or no, you just went and you experienced it. And sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be bad, but it sometimes would challenge your thoughts, and you'd be like, you know what? I never thought about it this way. I have not been thinking clearly about this issue. I've learned something.
But today you're being told.
Nowadays it's so weird because it's like I would learn these things through seeing them and experience them. Somebody would put on a show, or they wouldn't just be ranting on the internet, screaming and yelling or coming after me. Like, make something. If you want to make your point, go create something cool.
Yes.
You now can write, or you can make a video, or you can do, like, I'll tell you something. One of my favorite YouTubers is a trans woman. Her channel, ContraPoints, is the name of her channel. I love her. Do I agree with her all the time? No. But I love her videos. I love what she's doing. I've learned a lot from her channel, and I certainly don't agree with everything she says. But I mean, I consider her to be like the glam rock of YouTube pundits, because she does a lot with fashion, and she's very funny, and she's also incredibly smart. Do I agree with everything she says? No. But every time her videos come on, I'm like, I'm going to fucking watch this.
Yeah. Because you shouldn't, it's not an echo chamber. You shouldn't have to.
No.
That's the point. Okay, I listened. I don't agree on this occasion. I'll come back next time.
But, you know, she's putting on a show. Like, when I watch her videos, she spends a lot of time doing production, costumes. She's clearly, before she transitioned, she was a philosophy major in college that she ended up thinking, this is bullshit. So she left, you know, and she documented her journey. You can go back and watch a lot of her old stuff. It's really interesting to see. And I'm like, I really respect her. And you know, I've told people about it, and some people come back and I'm not going to watch, you know, some trans woman's videos. I'm like, well, why not? You know, I mean, if you think of them as a story, or as a movie, or as a piece of entertainment to watch, you should appreciate that the time she's put into this stuff. And people are always asking me, like, you know, Rob, I wouldn't have expected you to watch this stuff. And I'm like, but why? Like everything, my entire existence is about going out and experiencing other people's art and listening to what other people have to say, no matter what it is. And it's more interesting to me. Like, I already know what I think. So if I'm going to go watch somebody's work that already reinforces what I already believe, then what am I learning? You know, I want to go out and see somebody that I might not know anything about, or I've never heard of before, or somebody that might be diametrically opposed. And what I find now is, like, I went to the Evergreen State College, and in 2017, there was a student revolt there. The students took over the school, and they went after this professor, Brett Weinstein. And I went to this school, because of the diversity, because of you seminar, and you get graded based on how well you can organize your thoughts and have a conversation in class. And what I saw happening in 2017, that these students, I'm like, who the fuck are these people? Like, who goes to a college and think they know better than the faculty? Why are you
people are fighting for their right to be a victim nowadays.
It freaked me out so much that I'm like, what planet are we on? Like, this was my college. I went to this school. It was admittedly 30 years ago, but I'm like, when I was there, 65% of the student body identified as non-conforming of some kind. And they were. That's why people went. I went there because they had a film program. And you could get your hands on cameras and make things, which as a freshman was not easy to do at other schools. But nowadays, I'm like, wow, it's scary. The fascism of thought that is happening. Yeah. I mean, as somebody who was raised, I was adopted into a Jewish family. I was raised a Jew. I'm like, the one thing about Judaism that I don't think people really understand is how much my family encouraged me to go out and learn all I could learn. Like V'ger in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, go learn all that you could learn. Go travel the universe and assimilate, not really assimilate, but get as much knowledge, data process, as much knowledge as V'ger did that you can. Go out and find out, because that's the only way that you'll ever learn how to navigate the world that we live in. Because there's all of these different kinds of people. Like you said, you walk out your front door, and what do you run into? Especially in LA, all kinds of diversity. One of the great things about Los Angeles is, sometimes these communities keep to themselves, but if you want to go, you can go, and there's a street in LA called Pico. It goes all the way from the beach. You can take it all the way down to downtown LA, and it curves around and goes in. If you were to journey just down Pico, you could find a restaurant that represents almost every cuisine in the world. It's on one street in LA. And you can go do that if that's what you want. You can go find that in this city. And like you said, you went out with your brother and you would go on these adventures. I encourage people, man, wherever you live, one day, get up at 7 a.m., get up at 6 a.m. and leave by 6:30 and drive 2 hours. By 8:30, you'll be in a town or a place that you've never been. And go to that town and just walk around. Go to a diner or a restaurant and go and talk to the people that live there. And you can do that if you want. That's what's so cool about the modern age. I mean, and you can find out on your supercomputer where this is. Go I live within 2 hours of what? Let me figure out some place I've never been, and just go out there and wander around and see what's there. Is there a park there? Is there a thrift store? Who knows? But just go do that. I mean, that's what and people don't. And I'm like, I don't get it, man. If you are a Star Trek fan, boldly go where you have never gone before.
Yeah. Oh, Robert. Oh, I think I'm falling in love with you. I think you're an amazing man, sir. I really do. I think you're just so. It's wonderful to be able to have these type of conversations.
Well, anytime. I love this. I mean,
are you okay to stick around for a few more minutes and we smash through a few super chats? The people
100%.
Stuck around, because I've been putting on the screen, but people have been putting them through. But we've hit the 2 hour mark, and I am very conscious of your busy schedule. I gotta go do my own show. Exactly. You got your show to do. You got your life to leave here. So we got first of all, starting with Shane O'Reilly with a €1.50 Frolic Unicorn super sticker. Thank you, sir. And Big Fat Nerd with a £2 big thumbs up super sticker. Thank you, sir. Rob Atlas with a $5 super chat. Hail as an RMB. By the way, Robert, love your MFP shirt. Big fan here.
This is it's funny. I love my really obscure geeky shirts. I got this shirt. No, I didn't get it from Last Exit to Nowhere is my favorite from the UK. But this is, Emma, this is a Mad Max shirt. And a lot of people don't know what it is. So kudos for knowing what it is.
Connor Doherty with a €2 super chat. Much respect to you, Robert. You're absolute gent. Hap Kiddo Lock with a $5 super chat. RMB in the house.
I'm a big fan of Hap Kiddo Lock.
Of the Heels Run Red. Yeah, you need to plug that before you go as well.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that.
Lady Gravesmaster with a $5 super chat. I bet this $5 super chat CW is re-envisioned in the next 18 months or sold off. Cheers, Mr. Burnett. You're a true gentleman. And as you're a you're on. You're you. Oh, I'm not a gent. I'm just me. Thank you. Love heart beers. Thank you, Lady Gracemaster. Oz Baxter Inc. with a $5 super chat. Mr. B, love the movie Free Enterprise. Am I to assume Eric McCormack's Mark is based on you? Thoughts on the movie 20 years later?
No, he's actually based on Mark, my co-writer, Mark Altman. The Rafer character who plays Rob is the one that's based on me. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can go back in and I want to do a 4K version of it. I can clean it up and tweak the things I wanted to tweak. I'll tell you one thing. I do worry because there's some things that I would have been canceled for in that movie. There's a lot of things people say. I go back and I'm like, oh, one day someone's going to come for me for the things that the characters say in that movie.
I think retroactive canceling is the cheapest, the cheapest thing that you can do, because you are judging somebody by today's sensibilities. Number one in itself is arrogance.
Right.
Because you're assuming that today's current day sensibilities are the correct one. Well, you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong, obviously, to a degree. But I don't think there's anything wrong with everybody poking the fun at each other. I'll talk specifically, very briefly. Little Britain, for example. Little Britain was a dig, and it was a beloved dig. Not a malicious dig. It was a beloved dig at the absurdity of Britain and British culture.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that culture would be, whether it be in the hierarchy of the rich and famous or whether it be in the council estates of Croydon. It didn't matter. Everybody was fair game. And it was the most beloved show on television at the time. It was the most watched television show in the UK for a comedy at the time when it came out. Current day, cancelled because one person wears a black fat suit for one of the characters, which isn't in any way, shape, or form an attack on black people. But because today people don't understand nuance and they don't understand context, we get stupid, rash decisions like this. And so I don't agree with today's cancellation because I don't agree that today's current sensibilities are correct. But that's the arrogance of today. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I'll tell you something about Britain that I like. I remember seeing a movie called My Beautiful Laundrette back in the 80s.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes, and they talk about the Packies.
Yes.
And at first, growing up in Seattle, I didn't even understand the idea that anybody would have prejudicial feelings against Pakistani immigrants because we didn't have any Pakistani immigrants in Seattle. Exactly. Yeah. So I had no idea. So I was watching this film and that whole subculture was totally lost on me but I understood prejudicial things. I got that idea. I'm like, I understand that. Just like I didn't understand in New Zealand, there was prejudice against the Maori culture or indigenous Aboriginals in Australia. So there's people that there's racism and prejudice everywhere. But when you live in a country where we had no Pakistani culture, it was lost on me, and that's when you realize that, you don't always understand what's going on. You just don't
organically, things like that have started to dissolve more and more.
They do.
There'll still be people that say it as a slur. There always will be. You'll never ever prevent that. But organically, it's been like removed from the vernacular as a thing to refer to Pakistani people as, because people have organically realized the intolerance of it.
See, when I first saw the movie, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I mean, I got it, but now watch. Am I going to get canceled for using that word? Is that like the equivalent of using the N word over here? I don't know.
I think for an American, it would be more akin to when Americans called Japs in World War II.
Oh, yeah. See,
it's kind of that sort of slur.
Yeah. See, and when I first saw the film, it was interesting because what do? You have to read up on that. Then I did. I was like, oh, okay. And then I have to go figure out what this is. And people forget that too. I mean, a lot of people look at America and goes, what goes on over there, guys? I mean, I don't know.
I think it was about a white and a Pakistani gay couple.
Yeah, it was.
So there was a lot to unpack in My Beautiful Laundrette. No pun intended. Where did we get? We got to Big Fat Nerd with a £5 super chat. Hey Laz and RMB. Picard is now an android. No, he's not, because Picard finished in 1993. He's dead to me, just like Kurtzman Trek. This new Trek needs to die by phaser fire. I don't even view this current Trek as canon.
I honestly, I don't either, because none of it makes any sense.
No, there's 3 Picards to me. There's the Next Generation Picard. There's the film Picard, and then there's the Picard. And to me, they're all in different timelines.
Well, I mean, just to quickly, here's what I don't get. Again, writing wise, so you have a whole storyline where synths are bad, but their idea of synth is so sophomoric in elementary school. But be that as it may, so synths are bad. So you have your main character Picard, who throughout the course of this show has all this stuff happening, and he literally gets turned into himself a synth. He's no longer a human being. He's now become the one of these things that is the focal point of this show. Now, I would think then Picard being what he is, he would be the person who then would bridge the gap. Like if this horrible, malevolent alien force is out there, wouldn't then he be the one to finally bring peace? Now that he's distant,
if it's Next Generation Picard, yes. If it was film Picard, no, he'd want to shoot it. Yes. And if it's this Picard, he'd want to apologize to it.
I mean, it was so poorly. It was monumentally stupid. And at the end, they turn him into a robot. But yet, I mean, if they had any balls, they would have recast the part as Picard, made him 20 years old, made him this young, new robot character that we'd never seen before, and move forward. And Patrick Stewart would have done his part, but no, we put you in if someone put me in a robot body, if I was 90 something years old and didn't make me young and virile and beautiful and give me hair and make me like look like I was a front man for Duran Duran, I would have been like, fuck you guys. You put me in a synth body and kept me the same age. I'm 96 years old. That was the dumbest shit ever. Like, what kind of scientists are you? Were you on the Prometheus?
Come on, man. Scientists, sick ones.
I mean, come on.
Because, I mean, they didn't even realize that, things like Picard, who had already lived another life anyway, through this series, when he was hit by the alien probe.
Yeah, in Inner Light. Yeah. He's lived 2 lives.
He's already lived 2 lives anyway. So,
and had kids, by the way. He was a father for decades.
Yeah, he's a father, so he knew how to deal with children and all this. But, it helps if Kurtzman had actually watched the fucking episode.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the Red Letter Media episode with Mike and Rich discussing what they thought the Picard show should be before it was, when it was announced?
Yes, I'm a huge fan.
That broke my heart, because when I watched that episode, I realized this is the show I really want, and this is the show we absolutely won't get.
Yep.
And it was so Star Trek, and it was so akin to what Star Trek was, and it would have been perfect.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mike, I discovered Red Letter Media because of their Generations review. They did a review of Generations, I want to say 10 years ago. This was before Plinkett's review of... But it was Plinkett's review of Generations.
Probably
and it was
15, maybe.
Yeah, it might have been 15. And it was, I was like, this guy, whoever made this, so understands Star Trek and so gets it. And there are 4 reviews of the Next Generation movies, which they had done before their prequel reviews. But I really think their prequel reviews, if you want to know how to write a franchise, their prequel reviews of the Star Wars prequels are spot on. I mean, really great analysis. I mean, it's funny. A lot of people don't take it as seriously as I think that they should because of the Plinkett character, which I thought was hilarious. But they're great reviews. The same way that I think that Critical Drinker has a terrific take on these properties and really understand. And I just don't get, why is it so hard for the people that are making these properties to understand these things? Why is that so hard?
If we could answer that question, we'd be probably billionaires, because, well, certainly millionaires, maybe billionaires if it was Star Wars.
Right.
But yes, it's just this fundamental lack of understand. Like we were saying earlier with The Prisoner, when they remade The Prisoner, they just didn't get it.
Well, it's
I think a conscious decision to completely separate. I think it's potentially ego and vanity that says, I don't want to make another Star Trek show that people fit into. Oh, that's so Star Trek. That's great. I want to make an Alex Kurtzman.
Right. Well, that is the real problem. And, you know, I've always said that there is, and I use this example all the time, when Ryan Coogler had his success after he made Fruitville Station, really good independent movie, he was able to parlay that. He was a huge Rocky fan, like a huge Rocky fan. And I had listened, I think it was on NPR, but him and his father, when his mother got cancer, they would watch Rocky movies together. And when he had the idea of making Creed, I mean, what balls. I mean, I love what he did, but he was a man that clearly loved the Rocky franchise. And here he goes and makes Creed is the 6th Rocky sequel, 7th Rocky movie. And he created new characters based on canon. He went back and had Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa canonically play Rocky at his age, gave Stallone such a good part. He got nominated for an Academy Award playing Rocky the 7th time. And I'm like, if you want to look and see how a franchise is developed with great respect, a franchise that's older than Star Wars, look no further than Creed. And I've always said that Creed is one of the best revitalizations of a franchise done by a fan and a man who's a world-class filmmaker. I mean, I think Creed is a better movie than Black Panther is. Black Panther to me it's fine.
I've not even seen Black Panther.
It's Black Panther's good, but it's typical Marvel, but I like it. But to me, Creed is the movie that shows how, I would say, like, you want to know how to do Star Wars? Watch Creed. And people are like, what? How could that work? And I'm like, forget that it's Rocky. Think about it as a franchise, a movie that's working in a franchise that's over 40 years old, how respectful it is to canon, and yet how does it introduce new characters and situations that also work with canonical fealty. And that's a hard thing to do, but he did it beautifully. And look, not a lot of people love the Rocky movies or whatever, but to see how somebody who's a fan of the material goes in, tells their own story, but still has canonical fealty is a wonderful thing. And that's what, like, how can you take Star Trek seriously when they don't take their own universe seriously?
Oh, absolutely.
The design work. No, we have to give Spock has to have a learning disability. I'm like, that is a fundamental misunderstanding of the character of Spock. You know, Spock is not somebody who has a learning disability. Spock is a man who has to be a better human being and a better Vulcan than either one. That's his lot in life, is that he has to be better than both. He doesn't have a learning disability. And to put that in, I find Spock more relatable because I have a learning disability too.
This thing that you have to see yourself on screen to understand is the most patronizing bollocks I've ever heard in my life.
I mean,
that is so demeaning to people.
First of all, it's also demeaning to the character that Leonard Nimoy played for 50 years. And I hate...
You've got a white woman telling a black kid that they can't relate to what's on the screen unless that person's black? Do you just the level of fucking narcissism there is obscene, absolutely obscene.
You know, and then I have to go back to Deep Space Nine, where you see, I mean, you want to talk about representation. Well, the best way to talk about representation is not to talk about it; it's just to do it.
Exactly.
You just do it. And if you look at the diverse, I mean, Deep Space Nine had a pretty damn diverse cast.
TNG did.
Yeah, absolutely. and you know, you look at that, and nobody wanted an award for casting Ben Sisko, making him black and making his son. They weren't looking for that, and they told great stories. I mean, I went back the other day and watched Past Tense parts 1 and 2, which is it's set in like 2021. They go back in time to 2021 to San Francisco, which
the
is
riots,
choked by a homeless problem. It's exactly what's going on in San Francisco right now. Talk about prescient. I mean, Star Trek was right there.
I think it's 2020. It's set in.
Oh, it might be 2020. So the same year.
I think it is 2020. So it's so ridiculously funny. I think I saw a video where somebody actually supercut it into what's going on at the moment. That is pretty crazy stuff. But Avery Brooks, I mean, that guy, I mean, you know, there's sort of like the crass way to put it would be artsy fartsy, but that guy is just, you know, you could tell that this person, this is a creator, you know, this is a person who just wants to see what, you know, where it goes. You can see this person improving and riffing in his spare time, going down to his local actor class just to get involved. You know, you could just see him as one of those people. I think something like that's pretty beautiful myself. But
yeah,
I'm trying not to keep you, so I'm gonna have to smash through a few of these. I'm very Rob Altis with a $5 super chat bought the Space 1999 Blu-ray and was delighted that RMB does commentary on it. Pleasant surprise.
Well, I didn't. I ended up not doing commentary. You know why?
Oh.
I know the reason that I didn't. I'll tell you something. This is very funny. I've never talked about this before. So I recorded a commentary for Breakaway.
Right.
And I did it and I recorded it. And I'm like, why am I talking about this show? I didn't work on it. I didn't make it. I love the show. I'm surrounded by Eagle transporters.
Okay.
and I just couldn't do it. I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't.
I've got one in my corgi collection, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I
it's lost the you know, the middle, the you press the two things.
The pot. Well, you know, there's a company in England called 1612 that's making new Eagle transporters. They're amazing, and I just got the model kit of the. Well, look. This is so funny. I'm such a geek. Here's the spine booster,
dude. This is porn to me. This is great.
This is the spine booster that you can see.
Wow.
It goes on. This is for the new 22-inch Eagle model that they just put out. So this is a big model, but this is just the kit of the spine booster that goes on the Lab Eagle. And then, not to be outdone because I'm insane, they also these are all the engine bells, but these are actually brushed aluminum.
Wow.
So you can either have the plastic engine bells and paint them, or you can buy this ridiculously expensive thing and
oh no, I respect the hustle. I respect the hustle.
I mean, it's just, I always wanted a big Lab Eagle, but
I was going to open up this podcast by saying, should we chat for a couple of hours, or should I just open up Sideshow Collectibles and let's go shopping? That's how I was going to open this, but we got sidetracked.
Yeah, I mean, I keep looking behind you. I think I asked you, is that a Prime 1 statue?
That's a Prime 1 there, and then I've got 3 more here.
Oh.
I've got the Catwoman, the Batman, the Batgirl. They're all Prime 1 studios.
See, I got to tell you, I ordered my first. I've looked at Prime 1 studio statues forever, but I'd never ordered one, and I ordered one. I ordered a Robotech Macross, the animation, the Japanese animated series.
Oh, yes,
they have one coming out in their Batroid mode, and I'm like, oh, I have to have that. So
Well, I've got a Robin on pre-order.
oh yeah.
Downstairs, I've got the Nightfall Azrael Batman, which is the same size as this.
Yeah.
Both
Do
of
you
these, by the way, sold out worldwide.
do you watch a YouTuber named Gem Mint? There's
No, but it
okay.
sounds familiar. So maybe I have passively come across them.
Gem Mint collects Marvel omnibuses. He sits in front of, but he also does statue unboxings.
And maybe it's one of those I've watched.
He's got the Batman statues, and he went to some guy's house and he bought all of his the Arkham game statues they did. And I mean, and I love Gem Mint's channel. I mean, again, somebody who I don't know that I would probably be really good friends with, because as you can see, I collect a lot of Marvel omnibuses and stuff too.
Yeah,
but he's got them all. You know, he bought them all. And so I look at him like, wow, because he's got a lot of ones that I want. I wouldn't buy them all, but there's, you know, I look at his channel and I live vicariously through Gem Mint.
I got next at the beginning of August, not July. At the beginning of August, I've been told the final payment's going to be taken for another statue of God on order, and that is Mark from Battle of the Planets GeForce.
Oh, who makes that?
Prime One. It's a Prime One statue.
Oh my god!
And I've got it. I've got the exclusive edition. So he's got the eagle visor.
Yeah,
and on one of the it's got an alternative portrait. And the eagle visor is half smashed off.
Oh,
and his
man.
costume, it's like press stud, but faithful recreation. The wings on, dynamic pose, and I saw that, and I used to love GeForce Battle of the Planets.
Yeah, I love the Phoenix, the ship.
Oh yeah. But they call him on this one. They call him by the Japanese name, which is Ken the Eagle.
Right.
But he was Mark to us.
Right.
So I refer to him as Mark. So if you look on Prime One and you can't find him, it's actually Ken the Eagle.
Oh, okay.
Or just put Battle of the Planets in and you'll see it. But
yeah, I love those figures. I've got some 12-inch Metacom figures of the Battle of the Planets characters. Yeah, I mean, what I love about being a geek now is that they make everything that you want. Like somebody, like when I was a kid growing up, I dreamed of this stuff. Dinky or Corgi would make something like, oh, okay. Then you'd get the die cast, but that would be it. Now, model kits, Eagle model kits, the things that are available, you can literally, I mean, I used to be a completist. I'm like, I had
toys, for example. Yeah.
Oh my God. The hot toys. Like I've had to resolve myself to the fact that even if I was making hundreds of millions of dollars, I still couldn't get the Hot Toys figures. I couldn't justify. They're putting out more and more stuff, and I've decided, okay, I don't have to have all of them. I just have to have the key pieces. But there's still that. I mean, I must have 100 Hot Toys figures, but I have a lot of older Hot Toys figures as well because I've been buying them. I've been buying them for 15 years. And
so before they got really good.
Yeah.
Like really precise. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I have things like one of my favorite Hot Toys that I have is they actually made, when Superman Returns came out, they made a Jor-El. They made a Marlon Brando from Superman the movie.
Oh,
yeah, you can see it. It's really good, but it's not as good as it is now. But still, that came out in 2006, and they never released it in the United States because of some rights issue. So it was only released overseas. And like, I have that figure, and I love, like, I'll never sell that. And I love having it. And I love having it on a shelf with Christopher Reeve, and then also having the Man of Steel. Like, I like doing the multiple Superman displays or whatever. And even back in the day when Hot Toys, when they were first doing the Alien and Predator figures, which is when I first got into them, they couldn't call them action figures because other companies had that license. So they would be called action figure kits. So you had to put them together and dress them. Like putting the wire mesh on the Predator body was such a pain in the ass. Like it was really hard. Now they put it all. Now they don't care. But
when that Azrael Batman statue, when that was announced, I swear to God, I was almost in tears. This had to be in my life. This had to be in my life. And so hitting that pre-order was just like, absolutely gotta have it. Gotta have it. And when it arrived, 2 huge boxes, because it's one of these oversized ones.
Yeah.
2 huge boxes. I've even got a video on my channel putting it together.
Can I ask you a weird question?
Sure.
How do those boxes smell when you open them? Because they look like they smell like. I love the smell of plastic.
I sniff everything when I open a box.
Yeah. A lot of people are, if you don't collect things, people are like, wait, what? But it's that manufactured smell.
I'm making this Lego. When I open this, I'm sniffing the book, you know. It's just a Lego instruction manual. I'm putting it together, but I'm sniffing it. I'm sniffing everything. It's like when I open this Blu-ray box set, you're opening up and you go, it's just, you know, immediately you got to. It's just, I think it's a normal reaction. I think even out of geekdom, I think people, there's a beautiful, like when I got the, I picked this up to play, and this was like pre-owned, but I picked up, I'm like, it smells brand new.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that brand new smell. It doesn't smell pre-owned. It hasn't lost its smell. It's still.
I still have
fresh smell.
I still have laser discs that I kept in vinyl sleeves and things, and they still smell like. I love the smell of laser discs.
Laser disc in the morning.
Yeah, I love this. Smells like movies.
Smells like teen laser disc.
It's so funny. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my first. It might be my only. I can't go down the Prime 1 statue road, because if I did, I would become obsessed. That's why, you know, I've now found in my old age. You got to watch Gem Mint's channel.
Yeah, I will. I
go back and because he does all these statue unboxings. They're great.
I've got a Witcher Geralt there, Geralt from Witcher, and I got a Triss Merigold downstairs as well. And I got a Siri on order, which has constantly been delayed and delayed and delayed. So
that's
come
like
on,
the Avengers Endgame Captain America, the hot toys. I was supposed to come out like pre-COVID. Now it's been pushed 6 months into 2021. I'm like,
yeah, I've got that on pre-order as well.
Yeah, did they push yours? Now, where do you pre-order from? Do you pre-order from like Big Chief? Because they're in the UK?
I from Sideshow.
You do go. Me too. Yeah, Sideshow.
Because you get the bonus. You get the kickback, and you get the bonus coin. And I think I've got like $200 built up in my wallet. That's nearly a hot toy.
Yeah, I bought the Vision hot toy, the Avengers old Age of Ultron Vision hot toy, and one other with my points. And whenever
the fabric Superman's been pushed back. I've got the fabric Batman hot. It's not a hot toy per se.
Oh no, it's one of their sideshow. The sideshow.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful like old school fabric, but really detailed and just immense. And that Superman one looks. Oh god, it looks outstanding.
Is that the statue or the figure?
No, it's the figure. It's like a figure.
Yeah, I saw a video for that. Like it has a light up.
Oh, that's the Justice League one. That's arrived. That's a come. No, this is like it doesn't come in a. I don't think it's classed as a hot toy.
No, it's just a regular. That's because they make.
But it's like the same size, and it's quality, but it's like an old school. Like I've got the Batman one and I've got the Joker one.
Right.
It's like just like a 6, you know, like
I've got the Joker. I've got the Joker, which is great.
And they got the tailored costume. You know, they got the tailored fabric costumes on them.
Yep,
beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And my Batman one comes like you can take off the head and put Bruce Wayne's head on and stuff.
Yeah, I'm paying off. The Justice League Superman. I think I have one more payment on or something.
All right. Yeah, he's up there flying away for me.
Yeah,
and yes, the eyes are brilliant when they.
Because I've got a 6th scale statue of Cyborg that I think which I picked up. Nice. I'm glad I got that. It was something I actually got when I was working at Collider because they don't make a 6th scale Cyborg, and now at least I can do the whole Justice League collection. I mean, he's not a figure, but he looks great.
And I do have, sorry folks, this has got to be done. I do have the quarter scale Batman Begins over there as well.
Oh, see,
which is sold out.
Yeah, those quarter scale figures. I have a bunch of, well, not a bunch. I'd say I've like got 8 of them, but I didn't get the Batman quarter scale figure. I want that and the Iron Man. I didn't get that. I just got the quarter scale Vader.
Oh, the Iron Man one is still available, I think.
Yeah, it's so good.
I was tempted with that, but it's like $600 for that.
I know. I can't. I'm gonna get the quarter scale Spider-Man though. I pre-order the quarter scale I think it's Homecoming, the Homecoming Spider, or no, Far From Home.
I like that. I've got the Captain America Endgame one.
Right.
Yeah, Endgame, not Infinity, the Endgame one. So it's coming with the broken shield.
Yeah,
and it's
I wanted
Mjolnir
and the broken shield.
Yeah, but I can't decide what Mark Iron Man I want to get. I think it's Mark 7 or 17, the one I want. There's a very particular mark of Iron Man that I want.
Yeah, I mean, I've got too many of them already, but like I can't. Those die-cast armors are the greatest. I mean, I look at the engineering. They're the greatest engineered toys I think I've ever seen.
And they have articulation.
Yes. And all their iron, when you get those Iron Man arms, I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're so well done. And when you pick them up, they're really heavy. Like you and they light up. And they're so, like, I had to stop. Like, it got to the point where since we're totally off on a tangent, people are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? and I got to jump off.
They're loving it. I'm watching them. They're fucking loving it.
I got to jump off the show anyway, but I got to tell you. So my philosophy of life in terms of collecting figures, and it had to be this way, is ultimately I only want to own the best iteration of whatever particular figure there is. Like, and as we've gotten better, as facial articulation or facial sculpts have gotten better, but the one place where I'm unable to practice what I preach is when it comes to die-cast Hot Toys Iron Mans, because they're so good. They're hugely expensive. But like, so I have the first Iron Patriot from Iron Man 2, the roadie, right. the Iron Patriot. Oh, it's awesome. The red, white, and blue, the figure. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm done. I don't need an Iron Patriot. Until, of course, Hot Toys is making their Endgame Iron Patriot. And I looked because I have like 3 War Machines already. And I'm like, I can't buy another one of these die-cast War Machines, as cool as they are. But when they came out with that Iron Patriot, I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, it's so awesome. And I'm like, I have to like, I can't not. But then you're like, are you going to display both Iron Patriots together? Or do you only want the latest iteration? Like, the problem with Hot Toys is like, I'm not going to buy, like with the Avengers, I can't buy every Avengers. Like my only Captain America I ever bought was from the first Avenger movie. You Avengers Assemble. I never bought. I didn't know why. I didn't have enough money or whatever when I was working. I couldn't afford the ultimate Captain America suit that as it developed and got better. Like by the time it got into Age of Ultron, I'm like, I really want that Iron Man. Or the Captain America. I never bought it. But then when they came out with that Endgame figure, which is a great iteration of Captain America, I was like, and the Mjolnir and the broken shield. I'm like, all right.
And the Chris Evans head sculpt as well.
That was it. The head sculpt. And I'm like, because what I'll do with some of my Hot Toys figures, because I keep all the boxes, I'll repack them and I'll sell them. Yeah. You know, and you can sort of trade up. And I'm like, but then of course they use that old costume in Endgame. So it's like, okay, they're making a new version of that with a better head sculpt. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep my himself. I'm going to keep my original. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to do it. And so these are the things that we all, I mean, I'm telling you, man, AZ, we stress out about this stuff. Unless you understand, you'll never understand. Yeah.
It's just, again, I think it goes back to that visit to Port Marion. It's the connection. Yeah. It's just, it just bridges that connection for you. Feel as if somehow, some way, you got a little part of it. You became a little part of it. All.
Yeah. And like, I look at that statue behind you that's Huntress, right?
Yeah, it's Huntress. This is Huntress from
Hush. So I just look at the Hush Huntress. I'm just looking at that. And I just look at that whenever my eye wanders over. I'm like, God, that's cool.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
I mean, it's so cool, and the cape and how it's
you see the bust of Nightfall Batman behind as well.
Oh, is that? Yeah, I can't see that deep, but it's
ladies.
Just, like, who doesn't want that? I mean, I know, like, my girlfriend's like, I don't understand, what's the fascination with statues? I mean, action figures, you can move them. And I'm like, yeah, but with action figures, you still just pose them and put them up. So it's not like you're taking them down playing with them. You pose them, and when you buy a Prime 1 statue, they've been sculpted to be in a specific awesome pose, and you're just looking at awesomeness. Like, you know, and it's always going to be awesome.
God, she's my gal. And Hush is just the greatest thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I'm going to smash Tom from Midnight's Edge After Dark with a $2 super chat. I love you both so much. Captain Spy with a $2 super chat. DS9's future tense is ironic. Look at things now. Yes. Oscar Mayer with $5 super chat. Why do the number of likes never equal the number of watchers? Seriously, inquiring minds want to know. Jens Jurgensen with 100 Danish krona. The nerdiness is so thick here, we can cut it with a knife. Give me more. I love this so much. Grandpappy Fisk with a $2 super chat. Nice to meet two fellow fans of The Prisoner. I'm lifelong. SJ Almighty with a £10 super sticker of a thank you pair. Thank you. A pair, thank you. I think I get that one. J1, maybe, with a $2 super chat. Hell Rob, great show. Thanks. Thank you for watching. Lord D Drum with a €2 super chat. Great guests lately as Comicsgate Elite, Rikida, Robert. Yes, I've had some amazing guests. I got Lady Alchemy coming on soon as well. Jens Jurgensen again with 20 Danish Corona. Did you watch the Tripods as a boy as? Yes, but I cannot remember. It's been so long now.
Wait, hang on.
But I watched it as a kid.
My Harry Potter. The White Mountains. Wow. These are mine when I was, these are my originals. When I was I got these when I was in the 4th grade. And
fantastic.
Man, would I love to see the Tripods remade today. What I would give.
It would be explosions and
yeah, no.
Oscar May with a $2 super chat. RMB only has 27k subs. That's got to be a felony. Well, hopefully there should be some more subscribers from tonight. Get him pushed. You've seen Robert tonight. If you haven't fallen in love with Robert tonight, you have no heart. You have no love. This guy is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think this has been the best night of my life, bar losing my virginity. I think this has been the greatest night of my life.
This probably has lasted longer.
This has lasted a lot longer. Probably about 2 hours, 40 minutes longer. Oz Baxter with a $5 super chat. Theory. The Prisoner, Gilligan's Island, and Fantasy Island and Lost are all on the same island, just in different eras. Lols. I saw somebody else threw up a thing saying the island is the afterlife. The prisoner was killed when the gas came through. No, it's way more complex than that. The Musical Boy 93 with a £5 super chat. Oh, just quickly before I do though, the prisoner, is he John Drake?
Okay, you know what? I've always liked that. You know, he doesn't have to be, but I like that it could be. In my mind, it is. I mean, because what it does is it makes both shows even better.
Well, he does say in an episode of Danger Man, be seen. Oh no, somebody says it to him.
Right.
The person who actually plays the guy on the machine in the first episode.
Yep.
What do you like? What are your hobbies? And he hits his machine up. That guy actually says to him in Danger Man, be seeing you.
Because, you know, he was a secret agent. You know, he was that way. And I think that if I just love that idea. I mean,
Yeah,
I
think that's the perfect phrasing of it. I like the idea. I like the idea that it could be John Drake.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be, but I like the idea that
I
it
like
could
the
be.
idea.
Yeah. And it's the same image in the opening credits as John Drake from Danger Man, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think there was lots of deflection with the whole John Drake. One person says it absolutely was John Drake. McGowan says it wasn't John Drake. There's so much deflection with it all. So I think that's the perfect phrasing. I like the idea.
Well, there's a rights issue then. Then you have to pay they have to pay the creators of that show.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how it worked in those days, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how licensing worked, but
right.
I think one of the things that McGowan said was, I think at one point he intimated it was Drake, but you were never to name him as John Drake.
Yeah.
It was. Musical Boy 93 with the £5 super chat. My mum named me after a character from Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. I love that album so much. Hopefully not after David Essex's character.
I love that his mom did that. Your mom is she's a wonderful woman.
Yeah, she's influenced with that kind of influence is amazing.
Yeah.
Kisona with a €50 super sticker. Thank you so much indeed of a pair going freaky in the city, which I like. And Scottish Nerd with a £1.50 super sticker of a phallic unicorn. Thank you for your phallic unicorn, sir. Mount M with a $2 super chat. G. Martin tweeted Last Kingdom series during finale. G. Martin tweeted Last Kingdom series during finale. Not quite.
Yeah,
No?
I don't know what that is.
No, you lost me. Sorry, dude. Adam Wooford with a $5 super chat. See, they ruined the Dark Tower movie and Amazon kill the would-be series.
Yeah. I was bummed out about that.
That's what happened. This is what happens. Look at the Game of Thrones spin-off shows. I don't think we'll ever see one.
I mean, how crazy is it that they actually filmed a Game of Thrones pilot, a sequel pilot, and the first Game of Thrones they had to redo the pilot as well.
6 episodes.
Wow.
6 episodes, and it cost them $30 million, and it's never going to get shown.
Someone will put it out one day. It'll show up somewhere.
Maybe we'll see. When you were talking about the Superman Returns, I was thinking maybe one day we might see the 3-hour cut if there's still the footage to
well yeah, no, I mean it was finished. And I would love to see, one of the things that I've said with like the Mandalorian, the gallery of the Mandalorian, that I shot about 1,500 hours of behind the scenes footage of the making of Superman. And only 3 hours of it is on the disc, and we didn't even finish it in HD. But because of Brian's troubles, that maybe they won't do that. But it would be fun to go back and revisit it, like with my film, The Hills Run Red. So I produced this movie 11 years
now at Amazon.
Yeah, I produced this movie 11 years ago, low budget horror film, but we were able to. I shot a bunch of behind the scenes footage that no one had ever seen. So for the Blu-ray that just came out, I was able to go back to my tapes and revisit them and all the interviews that I had done. So they're all done on set. There's an interview with me, 12 years ago, and we shot it in Bulgaria. So it's pretty cool that we were able to go back and put that stuff on the disc. But, I've got a lot of video footage that no one has ever seen. And now that the gallery on The Mandalorian, like I would love to go back and do like a 6-hour making of Superman Returns. I could do it very, very cheap. I could do it just sitting here, and they could put it on HBO Max if they wanted to. There's a lot of stuff we could go back and revisit, and it'd be really interesting.
I think it would. There's a lovely picture of you on the internet, of you and Brandon Routh together. There's a lovely picture of you.
That we're on
him in costume.
Yeah, the new Krypton set. He took my camera. He took my camera and is holding it up. I mean, I've got such great footage that no one has ever seen, and just because we had to cut. I mean, what do you do with 1,500 hours of footage?
Exactly. Yeah.
But because if the movie was the movie had made $1 billion, then I think it would have happened. But it's the kind of thing where I just love to get that stuff out now that we have, whether it's on YouTube or. Hey, listen, I do have to run.
Yeah, you are way over time, sir.
Oh, but are you kidding? I'd come back anytime. This was so much fun.
seriously, no BS. I don't BS people. Robert, this has been just a delight, an absolute delight.
It's so much fun.
It's the quickest podcast I think I've ever done in terms of just sharing. It's just gone in a heartbeat, and that means you're just so engrossed and loving what's going on.
Well, you know what it was? It was like meeting you, even though we've talked before, but this was like meeting you at a convention. This was, to me, this was the experience of what being a fan was like, finding, like-minded individuals. We might certainly have political differences and things, but we sit down, we have this great conversation, and ultimately it just leads to us nerding out about statues.
Yeah, which is how it should be.
Exactly.
Which is how it should be. I'll stick on to finish the super chats if you need to run also. But is there anything you'd like to plug? No. I was very trying to keep it to 2 hours, and this has gone way over 2 hours. So I do appreciate how busy you are. Is there anything you'd like to plug before you go, sir?
Well, there is, of course, my own channel. You can come visit my own channel, The Burnett Work on YouTube, and Robservations, the show about something that I do every day, where I discuss. And today I'll be talking about the fact that apparently Klingons, it is canonical that Klingons do have 2 penises. That's the kind of discourse that you get on my show. But people are allowed to write in letters. So if you want to go to the burnettwork.net website, you can send me letters. I do read letters on the show. You can send me videos if you want. I'll play your videos. And the only thing that I ask is that people be respectful of the whole community. That's basically my one rule. Then also the movie I did produce, The Hills Run Red, has come out on Blu-ray for the first time. You can only get it domestically. It's from Shout Factory, Scream Factory, and the movie's pretty fun if you like slasher, horror, violent 80s stuff. But it has great special features that the director Dave Parker and I did together, and so it's pretty cool. And then I've also been working on, I can't say what it is because it's unannounced, and my part in it is small. I mean, I did a small part in post-production, but I am part of a team that has made an animated series. A fantasy animated series that's definitely R-rated. It's an adult animation show that drops on Netflix sometime toward, I guess, the end of the year. But I can't say what it is. It's been unannounced. But I think it's of interest to anybody. If you like animation, if you like adult animation, there's swearing and massive bloodletting and sex and dragons. It's pretty great. So look for that. I can't tell you what it's called, but I'll talk more about it once it's announced. But there were 3 seasons commissioned, and I just finished work on the first season's done. Well, it's not quite done, but we're already working on episode 14. It's 3 8-episode seasons so far. So that's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Absolute pleasure to have you on. Anything that you want from me, you know how to contact me. I'd love to have you back sometime as well if you'd be
whenever. I'd come. Are you kidding? I mean, now with COVID cases going up again, I'm sure California we're going to be shuttering at home all summer. So I just sit here working in my little observatory, doing stuff. That's all I do. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much indeed. You got your own show to do, so you go do your own show. And I again, it's been an utter pleasure. Robert Meyer Burnett, thank you so much. It's just been a joy. An utter joy.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. I'll come back anytime.
Okay.
Look, this is the way it should be done.
Absolutely. Through Discourse.
That's right, damn it.
Through Discourse.
And 12-inch action figures and Prime 1 statues.
Oh, before you go quickly, did Worf bone Deanna Troi?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And now that we know that Worf's packing 2 pistols, there's a lot there's a lot of that. I mean, you could make that happen. I mean, imagine the possibilities.
Oh, I think that's why she was a very happy girl.
Yeah, very happy girl.
Thank you, Robert. Take care, sir.
All right. I will see you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, man. See ya.
Oh, just guys, gals, you have no idea. I thought it was wonderful. If you didn't enjoy, I'm so sorry, but I don't care. I thought it was great. I thought that was absolutely great. Robert is a wonderful guy. The brief times that I've managed to speak to him, like I said, briefly on the Friday Night Tights, but there's a lot of us, so you don't really get the opportunity to really discuss. And also, when Robert was on Friday Night Tights, it was when he'd been let go from Collider. So I was very angry with the manner in which he'd been sacked. And so I was kind of like angry. It was angry as that night. And then when I turned up for the podcast for Midnight's Edge Dark late and it just finished, they still put us in and we were just chatting. And then we just ended up, there's a group of us, and we just ended up chatting, like I said, for about an hour and a half or so. And being able to that was more of a geek out conversation. And so when I had that, I was just like, I got to get Robert on the I've got to try and get Robert on the show. So as soon as that finished, I just contacted Tom from Midnight's Edge and said, hey, Tom, could you reach out to Robert and see whether or not he'd be open to give me his details to come onto the show? Tom came back and he's like, boom, here's his email address. He's, so it was wonderful to have. Yeah, I believe so. He was done dirty. But he's so, look at him. He's so good. The guy is so good. I could literally sit back and listen to him. I could just listen to him all day, every day. I really could. Absolute talent. What a wonderful man. Wonderful man. Yeah, I'm going to definitely get him back on as soon as possible. Let's go through the rest of the super chats, folks. So if there's any questions for Rob, I do apologize, but I did say, Rob, I'll only keep you for 2 hours because he's got his own show to prep for. I do know that you're a very busy guy. I'll keep you for 2 hours. Should we? And he was like, oh, that's fine. And he's given us nearly another hour on top of that. So what a wonderful person. Nova Zero with 10 Australian. They should have lost the battle. This is, I think, for Winterfell. Retreated into Dawn, and Cersei should have faced something she couldn't plot against, and leaving King's Landing alone would have been short-sighted. Plot fixed. I think it needed a lot of different fixing, to be honest with you. Love that guy. Yes, absolutely fantastic. A creator that cares. Yes, he really is. The Feral Jester with a £1 fiddy phallic unicorn. Thank you so much. And Cisco Kid with a $1.50 black cat. Like it. A little bit different. Like it. Lord D Drum with a €5 super chat. The Mayor blow will be dealt to council culture soon. Cyberfrog Wreck Planet is very, very close to hitting $1 million. Be part of history and support it. Yes. EVS last night threw me an invite to join his stream, but I was asleep. I was asleep in bed. And so when I woke up this morning and I saw it, I checked to see if the stream was still going, but it finished. It was like a 4.5 hour stream, though. And the honeycomb boxes have all sold out. So I had a brief chat with Ethan, and I was like, the honeycomb box is all sold out. And he's like, yeah, this has happened and this has happened. And they're all gone. I ordered 2. I ordered 2 honeycomb boxes. So at least I've got 2 honeycomb boxes coming my way. John Ellis Bush with a £2 super chat. They want everything to be diverse but opinions. And the irony is everything is diverse. They just don't want diversity of opinion. That's the irony. Yeah, my eyes are getting a little better. You can still see rawness around it. And this is 720, so the eyes are getting a little bit better, but it's still like grandma's bollocks. Maybe I should have some cosmetic surgery to remove those bags. It'll make me look so much younger. But yeah, the allergies, my allergies are calming down a bit. Eric K with a $5 super chat. As an RMB pure gold chat, You have something uncommon, common sense. Thanks, Az, for getting him on. It was a pleasure to get him on. I love you, Az. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you. Mr. Insanity with a $5 super chat. One of the best streams ever, Az. RMB, you are phenomenal. He is. Absolutely is. What a gent. There's that absolute gent. Absolute gent. Really is. Oscar Mayer with a $5 super chat. I noticed that it's still a 600-point discrepancy between the likes/watching community. Step it up. That's the real struggle. Well, we had like 1,400 people watching tonight, which has been fantastic. So that was really, really good. I was really chuffed with the turnout tonight, people. Really grateful for the people that watch this. And this is going to stay up on the channel. This isn't going to get membered only. When I do AZChats, they stay up for everybody to watch. So if you came in, I got 1,600 plus, someone said at one. Okay, wow. So if you missed some of this and you were like, fuck, this is going to, once I finish, this will be rendered and it'll go up for everybody to watch. So you'll be able to see the whole stream again. Or whatever you missed of the stream, I should really say. Mark C with a $5 super chat. As I'm shocked that you would use the American Star Trek TNG box set instead of British version. Even Americans buy the British version. Look, I just wanted a version. I just wanted a version that they cannot fuck with. That's all. I just needed a version that they can't fuck with. They can't edit. They can't take away. Mark C with another $2 super chat. Sorry, referring to your YouTube title card. Oh. Adrian Nazaruk with a £2 super sticker of a #1 Fox. Thank you, Adrian. 13th Warrior with a $5 super chat. Why, if a person's identity/gender is a social construct, would one believe they would behave any differently in the past than people of that time? I don't know. Because we hope people learn from history, I suppose. Cancelled Venom with a 2 Canadian. Every time someone says Kurtzman, I get indigestion. I understand. Loquacious Primate with a $5 super chat. Great talk. Love both of you. It makes me sad that in so many ways we seem to have regressed. But discussion like this gives me a glimmer of hope. This is how things should be. I don't actually think Robert and I are particularly too far apart in terms of politics, maybe a little bit here or there. But what is important is that's irrelevant. That is absolutely irrelevant. What was important was our love of fandom. What was important was our commonality. And that's what we should be looking more towards. We should be looking at what the commonality that we share with people, as opposed to what differences separate us or keep us apart. But that sounds like common sense to me, so I don't know. J. Morfitter 1 with a $10 super sticker of a flying pear. Oh, I could do with a flying pear. Ladies. Don't me too me, for fuck's sake. Oscar Mayer with a $2 super chat. 1K. We are round and we roll as we do. 1K viewers. Oh, yeah, we got 1K viewers. 1K likes. That is fantastic. 1K likes is absolutely fantastic. Picard sucks with a $2 super chat. Love you, Rob. I'm sure he'd say I love you back. Space Windu with a $2 super chat. Fantastic show today. Loved hearing it live. Thank you, Space Windu, for turning up and watching it. And then finally, because you're still on the screen, Jamie van der Horst with a €2 super chat. Great stream, as always. Thank you so much indeed for the super chats, people. Thank you so much indeed for turning out and watching. You watched in huge numbers. That is just so, it buoys me to do more and more of these, because it shows that you guys are interested in this type of podcast, this type of conversational podcast, which I know kind of excludes you a little bit from the discourse, but this is I think one of these things that you can just sit back, relax, flip on the ears, and just chill out and listen to. And I really do hope that you enjoyed today as much as I did, because it's phenomenal. I've already got the next guest lined up. The next guest is going to be Lady Alchemy. Lady Alchemy is going to be the next guest. That will be my first female AZChats too. So we're keeping it diverse. So I'm looking forward to that. Massive thank you to everyone who hit the join button today or upgraded your memberships. Massive thank you to people who hit the super chat button to support the channel. Trust me, you guys keep the channel going right now. You're absolutely phenomenal. My mods for being amazing. Purple Lady, Veronica, thank you so much indeed for all you do. You're so hard workers, and I appreciate you greatly. And just everybody who tuned in to watch and hit that like button. That means a big deal. It pushes the stream up, so hopefully more people will get to see it. So I'm very, very grateful for. I'm so upbeat and excited after that. It does. It kind of renews your. It renews your faith. You know, it renews your faith, and it makes you understand what made us fans, and what made us fans is our love of the fandom. And that's something that we got to hold on to, and we got to keep on to, because that is the kind of stuff which will never, ever discriminate against anyone. So, hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, do give it a like, and also subscribe to the channel. Okay, I'm taking a piss. Okay, folks, I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Bye for now. And this is the awkward bit where I have to wait for the